Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
You know, like how parents will think they're giving you something good for you, and you'll be drinking that apple juice and just more and more apple juice, and you associate with love, but really it's just sugar water from concentrate that's destroying your
I
teeth.
don't know. I grew up by Gistich Ranch, so I'm not used to that.
Yeah,
I'm
same.
used to raw apple juice my whole childhood.
Yeah, see,
I get what
I'm
you're
trying.
playing
How
at,
am I
though.
supposed to reach these kids? You know what I mean?
I need to reach these kids.
Yeah, that was supposed to be some sort of a segue into White Dudes for Harris anyway. But first, how are you guys?
Well, if we're doing this, apple cider is where it's at. It far surpasses apple juice in every single way.
So there's a Croatian.
Well, then we have Martinelli's.
There's a Croatian ranch that is that he's talking about, like a farmer family called the Gizdich, which is, you can usually tell like a Slavic name with it, like.
I was in Sweden and I saw Gizdich. Or not Gizdich, but the Martinelli's. I saw the Martinelli's sparkling cider in Sweden in 1999, and I was like, "What?" It's like down the street from my house.
So as far as I understand it, because Gizdich had it that you could go and they tried getting kids to come visit from all the schools, and like you can pick your own apples, and then you can make your own apple pie. Basically, you can get a pie here, you can get like all these cool things, apple juice by the gallons and with pulp in it and everything. It was like straight out of trees. It was great. But they married into the Italian Martinelli family, which did alcohols of different kinds, like really cool Italian style sparkling drinks. And then there was the Prohibition. So that's when they introduced like the sparkling ciders. And then they were so popular they continue to do that, which is cool to imagine a product that like was more popular than alcohol during the Prohibition. That's apple cider. You know?
Is that you guys, or is that? I think Bill is just blasting music in the backyard right
Bill.
now. Good for him.
Bill.
He's on vacation.
We should just like talk about Bill all the time, whether he's there or not. Like, is that Bill over there? Is he like slicing up that body? Oh, Bill, classic.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you have Dr. Bill Hartford and then David Bowman, and so we kind of have even Bowman is on a billboard and Eyes Wide Shut in the background. Explain that.
This might be like
already in Kubrick. Bam.
Yeah, no, I was about to say this might be already like too contemporaneous of a topic then, but like the idea of White Dudes for Harris seems really interesting to me. Did you see that they did this? There's like, where's the picture of it, bro? I wanted to see the picture.
I think they were trying to say something about the duality of man.
Yeah.
I think it was very Jungian, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like Mark Hamill and the original
dude,
Big
Jeff
Lebowski,
Bridges.
the Jeff Bridges.
Oh, I feel
himself.
represented for once.
Well, this is just to me it's weird because like if Richard Spencer had a White Dudes for Harris thing, which he does by the way, that gets in trouble. But if it's Jeff Bridges and Mark Hamill, particularly upset at Mark Hamill that he gets away with it, it just seems strange to me. Like, and also just to have like a racial definition for your group, right? Like this is like if this
Right.
is the left and they're supposed to be breaking up racism and saying the right is always putting people into racial boxes.
No, this is a so it begins situation where whatever, I mean, this isn't going to be for everybody, but generally speaking, if you have a legitimate complaint or criticism, it'll immediately go to you're a sexist or you're a racist, you know, like that's like the easiest place to go with it. You know, that's why it's good that when you have criticisms to have them be solid, you know, reasonable criticisms, and to not yourself go to those places initially, or, you know, talk about the blowjob queen of whatever, you know, that's not going to work for you.
What if you were to publicly castrate yourself and then also remove your eyes in a very visceral way? So that would that make you completely bulletproof to the racist and sexist? You could
Is
be
there
like,
another way to remove your
Again,
eyes
like,
other than viscerally?
Is this about Richard
Eyes
Spencer or
and
not? Like,
lasers.
you still can't tell if you're making a reference. I don't know. Just the idea, to me, it is really not a metaphor that if, you know, this were to be the other side, because they've created this idea, you know, here's Richard Spencer literally saying he's voting for Joe Biden because, you know, all of these Democratic policies, they better racism, or like they further racism, right? They, I don't know, if they increase they sustain the practices and mechanisms that produce racially divided societies, racially
Right.
divisive societies. And, you know, I just find it really interesting that they're so open about it this time.
well, but I mean, it comes across, if you were devil's advocate for this, it comes across like, oh, they're just doing a reverse psychology, you know, the old switcheroo, and they're trying to put their stank onto Harris, so that it's almost overtly about pro-Trump, even though it seems to be pro-Harris, right? I mean, that's kind of the
How
way
do
that
you mean? You think they're saying that the white dudes for Harris is really saying the opposite, or you saying that because there are like
they
white
are
dudes are against Harris?
publicly,
Sorry?
yeah, they're publicly and intentionally sandbagging.
They're
And I
laying
don't
a
mean,
fire line, yeah.
and I don't mean Jeff Bridges. I mean like the Spence version of this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I don't know. I
What
think
do you
it's
mean you
not.
guess?
No, I don't think so. I
seems-
think that people. I think so. Like some people will say, like the KKK will endorse a candidate, so other people won't endorse the candidate. Is that kind of what you're
Right.
getting at? Okay, so that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
what I
yeah.
think goes on when Richard Spencer endorses George Soros. I think Richard Spencer just knows that ethnically divided societies. Okay, if you get a new class of people in for whatever reason, let's say that you know, you're really philanthropic and you really want to help these people because they came from a country that your grandparents or parents
Don't believe.
or
I
your
already
brother
don't believe. I don't believe in true philanthropy.
well,
but
hold
go
on.
ahead.
You forget that's short term. The long term is that the country that you're getting people from, your family destroyed, you know, to get their oil.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
so yeah,
There
yeah,
we came
yeah.
back there.
Yeah. So, but now that you've got these people coming here, and you're trying to take care of, maybe your mom's trying to take care of them. Maybe your mom's voting for these people. Your sister. They're voting. Hey, you know, we're gonna set up that these guys will get all the jobs we don't want to do. Okay, so now you've created a society where you have racial, national class division, because now all the jobs that are the jobs that people don't want to do are being done by the people that, I mean, you might not have originally started out racist, but within 20 years, within a generation, the kids growing up, they're going to have two kids. They're going to kids say, well, thank God I am or am not part of that working class, right? And this is socioeconomics, but it is racial, and you can see it. And so all of a sudden you're dividing people based on, so racism does stem from this, right? And so I think Richard Spencer sees that. He says, this is a perfect way for a racially divisive world.
Isn't there a bit of a catch-22 between that Morgan Freeman approach and like critical race theory? Like that there's some middle ground, perhaps. Maybe I'm too much of a moderate, but it just seems, you remember when Morgan Freeman was just like, how do we end racism? Like, stop talking about it. Stop fixating on it. You're fixated on it. That just perpetuates it. He was like, let's just move on. And so that's a really good argument.
Don't ask,
But
don't
it's also there's a video I've been unable to find. Maybe somebody can help me find it, but it's Cornel West and Maya Angelou discussing the N-word, and they both have completely opposite opinions about it. And yet, when you hear each person's opinion, it's a case where you have a debate where both people arguing make sense on their own terms. So, like Maya Angelou's like, "Don't use it. That was used to oppress us. Like, don't even go there." And then Cornel West is talking about reclamation, saying we treat it this way. It's like an equality thing. Da 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 da. but like they both have sound arguments, but they're also completely at odds with each other. And like it's, you know, it raises interesting issues, right? Because you're like, well, what is more racist, to ignore something that's there if it's systemic, like if you're talking about our systems or whatever, which is debatable for some. But if you say that there's such thing as systemic racism, then how do you deal with that? Do you ignore, you don't want to ignore it, but then if you're just completely focused on it, you're going to see it in things where it doesn't exist. And that's happening. So people do that all the time now.
I like the idea that one of them is objectively right and one of them is objectively wrong.
I don't think they are. I think they're both like objectively right on their own terms, because they're setting up what is the scenario in which they're relating to. Like, in each one of them has an avenue where it applies itself, and that's my view. You take it how you will.
I think that things change based on like the time. So people be like, man, look at this group of people that have this socioeconomic environmental training, and so now we're gonna say that they're always like this, and that's not really accurate, right? It's, you know, you can think of Theodore Rex, which I brought up recently for whatever reason. I saw that movie again, and I was thinking about how interesting that Theodore Rex is actually about racism. But in the 90s, when I saw Theodore Rex, by the way, does anyone remember the Whoopi Goldberg movie with the dinosaur?
Whoopi Goldberg with the dinosaur, yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Who could forget?
Well, in case you guys do, in case the audience isn't familiar, it's a movie with, dinosaurs and Whoopi Goldberg. It's a buddy cop film that, wait, I wrote it down, so I might as well be getting my tweet out. What am I even thinking here? It's a buddy cop film where basically in the 90s you have no more. It used to be a buddy cop film would be about the younger rookie cop, and then you didn't have a younger rookie cop anymore. You had an African American cop, right? So like it's a racially divisive, or maybe a Chinese cop in Chinatown or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then this older cop who's lost his buddy in the force before, he needs this younger person that he can't trust anybody, right? So they give him the person he can trust the least socially, which is a younger person or an African American person or a woman, and this goes on and on for decades. Every time, like you've got a movie that's now you've got an Albanian friend who's, you know, you're like, okay, now Albanians are cool, and this is how they embrace people.
Cop and a Half, where it was a young little black kid.
Well, yeah, it's like how far does that go? Like, because at a certain point, everyone's embraced. So by like the 90s, you've got Whoopi Goldberg is like the old white man cop is Whoopi Goldberg. It's a black woman now who is the conservative traditionalist who's holding on, who's like old and doesn't get it. You know what I mean? And not just that, she's a cyborg. So she's like the transhumanist thing, and that's already, by the point of this movie,
I'm already bored with cyborg Whoopi Goldberg. Right?
It's already out of date.
More.
Yeah.
How do we spice this up?
And so really then the dinosaurs are these, you know, genetically modified, brought back vegetarian creatures that all have psychic telepathy, and they have their new kind of Buddhist religion, you know, and this guy, he's the new. So you like, what would a kid think of as the buddy cop? Well, like the Ninja Turtles. Or just something that's so Shrek, something that's so monstrous.
Right, but you want that's such a classic trope. The like, you know, you're reckless. You know, the guy, the like the cop, he's got his like superiors, just like he's like, you know, you're out of control. He's like,
I'm a dinosaur.
Yeah, you know, there's like the opening of the movie where there's some like chase or whatever, and like a bunch of property is destroyed, and now he's got to talk to his superior about it, and his superior is like, do you know how much that cost? That little stunt you pulled? And he's like, you know, somehow he just stays hired until some point in the movie he has to turn in his badge and his gun, but then he goes out and solves it anyway, and they have him back because they're like, oh, we had you all wrong.
So you've seen this movie? Okay.
I've seen I've seen Theodore Rex when I was a kid, but I haven't watched it as recently.
Theodore Rex is really interesting also because Whoopi Goldberg signed up for it, didn't want to do it, couldn't get out of it, and was basically like obligated by contract, which is not quite a form of slavery. So there's a whole other level to this, you know, that I think is interesting too. And the beginning of the movie, there's a scene at the way the movie opens up is kind of based for a straight to VHS release. It's once upon a time in the future, at midnight tomorrow, billionaire Elazar Kane, like Cain and Abel, will launch his new Eden missile to bring on another ice age. After mankind is extinct, Kane will reanimate pairs of all of the Earth's animals he keeps frozen in his ark. and create his vision of paradise.
So he had like an Epstein-style plan.
Yeah. 1 hour ago, 2 workers escaped from the New Eden compound and are racing to tell police about Kane's master plan. Yeah, so like just like the way it's like Starship Troopers or something like that. This kind of New World Order kind
It
of
also
vibe.
feels like someone that really wanted to make 3 movies, and they were like, "But what if I only have the chance to make one?" Like, and they just put all 3 of them into one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it really only needed like the telekinetic angle or the dinosaur angle or the missile creating a new ice age angle, but it has like 20 different angles, right? There's like a dodecahedron sort of storyline.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it seems like it's super deep of an imprint because they knew that kids weren't going to have their parents with them necessarily. Most of the time, you trust Whoopi Goldberg, so you're going to rent a video or buy a video at the store. This video was like pushed next to like sugar bars at the edge of the supermarket, not even in VHS stores. They just had these movies everywhere. It was crazy. And grandma would buy it or your aunt would buy it and they would bring you a copy of 36 copies of Theater X, right?
Goldberg, I like her.
Yeah. And nobody else, because it's such an outsider.
That's a nice prostitute nun. We
Yeah.
like
Well,
her.
I mean, her beginnings
Wasn't she
were
great?
so like, as far as like films go, was so highbrow because she did the color purple,
right? Yeah.
and then she Jumpin' Jack Flash and Flash Forward Theodore Rex. You know, it's just like
Pinky, is that true? Do black people not trust Alf? I need to know about that. Is that a thing? I never heard that before, so I can't weigh in.
It seems like they would have actually interacted a few times because didn't the dad from Alf was like a huge drug user and like he would go to like the bad part of town.
Superman, Santa Claus is black in Alf. The Santa Claus, his friend who gives him the house. They have like a cabin. They go out to the woods and like.
Well, actually, if you look at the behind the scenes of Alf, there's a lot of like legit racist things that get said by Alf.
Can you imagine like a Pleasantville nightmare where we got sucked? Like someone's like, "We found you. You're the ones. You get to go in." And you're like, "Not the Alf world."
No,
yeah.
Alf can never run for any kind of public office because he has some things behind the scenes in his past that would haunt him. They would come out,
or at least a good portion of the cast.
He would be pretty devastating.
Most cat people, yeah. I think everyone.
Yeah, if you thought eating cats was the worst of Alf, it's so far from that.
No, I downloaded like a bunch of puppets. I think I downloaded every Alf episode at one point, and it came with like the supplemental material, and it was kind of shocking. I don't know what happened to Alf, man. Like what his whole deal was behind the scenes.
Well, you know there was that episode of the junkie nightmare, right? Like the Eternal Permanent Midnight is all about the time that he was writing the episode for Alf, where Alf brings a spider with him from space. You know what I'm talking about? And it's like a spider. It's like
I feel like I need to rewatch all of Alf now. Does it hold up?
Oh yeah, Alf definitely holds up, especially with like members of the cast that are dead. You should start getting candles.
I think I found my new background show to go on.
There was a dude who just did a thing recently about Alf's hidden meanings, but it's not that hidden. It's just straight up, if you didn't already know this, the story of Permanent Midnight and how he was a heroin addict writer, and he even wrote an episode of Alf about how he was trying to kick his drug habit, not just heroin, like speedballs. Like
didn't he only write like a couple episodes of Alf?
Yeah, but I think like 6, but like the one that really is his magnum opus is the one where he brings a. Let me see if I can find the parts of the episode there. He brings a bug from space, like he crash lands in, and the family's got him, but they don't realize he's come with a bug. He's come with this weird bug, and the bug's getting bigger and bigger. He's keeping it secret, but the bug's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they can't deal with it. They've tried to squish it out all the ways that they know how, and it's destroying the family and scaring the kids. And finally, like, they just decide that like they've done everything they can, and they like leave Alf alone to kind of kick the bug himself. And he spends the next 5 days kind of just alone fighting this freaking crazy bug monster, that is his drug habit. It's pretty sad. It's pretty brutal. It's pretty like much the gnarliest drug episode of any. If you think about it, like most of the PSAs about these things don't get nearly as intense as this one. Like it's kind of like It's All Gone Pete Tong. Like you know how like in All Gone Pete Tong he's got that like Wolverine girlfriend. Like that's such a perfect metaphor. But the kids don't necessarily have to know what's going on. They're like, oh yeah, he's got this bug from space. See, and
So Alf
one
was
rad lady's
literally
having
doing heroin and
yeah, and well he was doing speedballs. One
space bug.
one rad lady says, "Hello, I'm so grateful for these streams. I learned so many new things. Thank you all for sharing your time and thoughts." Yeah, did you know that Alf was addicted to uppers and downers and all arounders? Probably. I feel like that was
We've talked about Alf a lot before.
yeah.
And
It shouldn't surprise you.
Yeah, no, Alf is the play on the Golden Bough. Alf is Aleph, with if you were to spell out the Hebrew letters, Aleph, Lamed, Pei, that's Alf. And Aleph corresponds to the fool. Alf is very much the fool. And the whole idea in the Golden Bough is that the challenger of the king would have to be somebody from a complete outside land. But because the whole world is mapped and everything's laid out, he has to come from outer space. And then the great irony is you would think that this was a significant enough event that this person would turn civilization on it, like it would be such a huge thing. But because of the government, they have to hide him in the garage. And so it's like this ultimate just like total irony of like this should be the world changing event, but the government would kill the challenger. So instead of him, like doing his job, like, so, yeah.
I talk about this a lot lately, I think, but it's like this ubiquity of conspiracy in the 80s and 90s where you didn't even have to explain why you would have to hide an alien from the government. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s and you saw that someone had an alien, you just knew that they had to protect it from the government because the government would come and they would lie and they would steal and they would hurt your little friend. And that sort of thinking, I think, kind of bred a whole different sort of generation of people where, like, that's the default mentality. You know what I mean? You see a guy in a black suit touching his ear, you already know, like, oh, there's something going on down here, as opposed to, like, not even giving it any thought.
Right, and there was a slew of these, like, alien kids movies where they had to hide the aliens from the government. Like, and Mac and Me comes to mind, but Mac and E.T., obviously. But Meatballs 2,
yeah,
which was just really a play.
Mac and Me is which one's the one? Is Mac and Me or is it the Navigator that has like Pee Wee Herman's voice?
Fly to the Navigator has Pee Wee
Fly the
Herman's
Navigator.
voice.
Yeah, so there's like a level there. I'm pretty sure that's weird. I
But
don't know. Maybe not that
Mac
weird.
and Me was really just like kind of like I think a Pepsi and Pizza Hut advertisement.
I was gonna say, but Paul Rubin also someone that was hiding from the government at one point.
Oh, right.
I mean, Mac and Me is just free. The whole Mac and Me is free on the YouTube right now. That's pretty cool.
Well, there's also the Mystery Science Theater 3000 where they go over Mac and Me. I mean, I saw this movie in the theater when I was a kid, and I loved it. And it's so bad. It's so bad.
Nah, dude, you kidding me? Look, it's like Dobby. It's like Harry Potter or something. Look at that scene. Is directly the Matrix rips off this deja vu kind of thing here. Look, gone.
Yeah,
see, there's a lot of
totally.
yeah.
There's a glitch in the Matrix. Yeah.
There's some inspirational stuff in Mac and Me. I would say that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you as a kid know immediately you have to hide everything from the government. That's just taken for granted.
But was it an early like IMAX prediction? I mean iMac prediction? Like why it's Mac and Me?
iMac.
Yeah.
Well, why is his name Mac?
Big Mac? Were they advertising for McDonald's? Actually, I think this was.
It was an acronym, I believe.
Oh, you're right. It was an acronym. Because it was a play on ET, so it was like
it has to be mysterious alien creature, Mac.
There you go.
Dude, and it's kind of a Moon Man thing too with the poster.
It also had Jennifer. This is Jennifer Aniston's first movie. And she has like about 10 seconds in it or something during the dancing scene at I think it was McDonald's actually. I think they go to McDonald's and they have like
that silhouette already looks so much like ET, you know what I mean? Like that they're definitely riding the wave of it.
Oh, right. Completely.
And the font. What about Frog Dreamin'?
What about Frog Dreamin'?
You remember that one? Anybody? Frog Dreamin' is the movie with the E.T. kid. You loved him in E.T. Now Henry Thomas is back as Cody Walpole.
I saw him as something as an adult recently.
Frog Dreamin'.
Man, this doesn't sound familiar. I'm sure I've seen it, but
An American boy whose parents have died lives in Australia with his guardian Gaza. Cody's very imaginative, inventive, and inquisitive. He builds things in his garage, including a rail bike, which he uses to ride around on railroads. It's amazing. He comes across some strange events happening in Devil's Knob National Park, associated with the Aboriginal myth about frog dreamins and bunyips, terrifying water monsters that prey on humans. Cody tries to investigate. The occurrences revolve around a lake where the bunyip, the locals call the Donkagen, supposedly lives. The Donkagen. Another myth explored by children is the myth of the Kurdaicha man. And so there's all these Aboriginal myths that are in here, and basically they all connect to like white man Babylon technology stuff. The discovery of a donkey engine excavator tool. He sees this thing. It's in the swamp, and like the Aborigines have thought that this was like a monster or something to that effect. And he like basically it's like a Lord of the Flies with like superstition or something. It's pretty good though. Frogs.
The frogs.
Oh yeah, and there's the frogs because they scream all the time. There's definitely like some kind of weird kick quality to that movie.
What was the other frog movie where the guy like is coming up against the giant frogs? Like it's like a C movie, B movie, Frogville or something. Guys, something of Frogville. I can't remember what that was.
Dude, I've been so off my frog game. I had no idea.
Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Yeah, Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Hell Comes to Frogtown.
And it's funny because that whenever I saw, I don't even know if I've ever seen this movie, but it always reminded me of the Frog Brothers from The Lost Boys. I didn't know if there was a connection.
It's kind of got the Planet of the Apes vibe too. There's like it's like Surf Nazis Must Die crossed with Planet of the Apes with giant ninja turtle. Look at that. It's worth it. It's worth it.
This
Kind
looks
of
like
some-
Theodore Rex.
A little bit of Zelda going on. Oh, it's so good. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm a fan of these kinds of movies. You got like a anthropomorphic frog and like an action B star with acne scars. I'm like 100%.
Wait, is that the guy from God, what is that called? Who's that actor? Is he who I think he is with the glasses?
Roddy Piper from They Live. I don't know. He kind of had the same haircut.
Is that him?
And build.
I don't even know. I can't remember.
I'd be surprised if it was, but it kind of looks like him, right? They Live.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was a wrestler, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Roddy Piper.
Right.
He was the dude that wore the kilt, which I assume also implies that he was naked under
Oh,
there.
it is him. Yeah. Thank you. Interesting. Well, it's funny because the frog people kind of look like the They Live people a little bit. Maybe that's a reach, but they're kind of just weird alien looking people. Yeah, I guess that was
Strong Doctor Who vibes too.
Now there's a movie with the They Live guy about Pepe. This has become the most important movie ever.
They connect. You're right.
It's
I see
pretty
that.
wild. Yeah, and like also MAGA because like remember what they took from us. And I'm not talking about the lingerie. I'm talking about the hairspray. Although I think they go together, but there's something more beautiful about this time. Look at that gun.
You are right. There's now like a direct connection to They Live.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
I don't know. What was that?
And that's also another wrestling connection between L. Donald and just like the wrestling world, right?
Sure.
Even though I'm pretty sure that his career ended before Donald came in.
Did it? There's probably some crossover there, don't you think? I mean, Donald has been doing the wrestling thing for a long time now, right? I was just watching a video the other day of him like beating somebody up, like they just like kind of let it happen. He walks away, like yeah, whatever. Like I don't know. I've seen some weird footage of him, like the head shaving thing too. He shaved somebody's head on the.
Not just someone, Vince McMahon, like the owner of the whole entire wrestling federation. Yeah.
Classic. Interesting.
This would be like the likeness now. I guess now the level he's on, it would be him shaving like Elon Musk's head on live television or something.
Right. So I think this is the thing: is that the nature of how people have historically related to Donald Trump. That it's really easy for people to kind of see WWF, WWE type like scenarios. Like it's easy to project that into it because he's participated in that so much. So like if something happens with him, you're like, is it a WWE trick? Like how's he doing that?
I tell you, if they shaved his head off, I don't think it's a WWE thing at that point. I think something real happened.
Yeah, because he wouldn't allow that. It's true.
Right, which
Unless
would
if it's like I think you should leave scenario where he's already gone bald and he's wearing a toupee and he just wants to just go the other way. So he's like, I don't know, man. They took my hair. I'm just gonna keep it this way, you know.
Have you seen the images where people will basically shave his head and give him like a little goatee? It's a
It
does
vast
look better.
improvement, to be honest. Like
I
way
mean-
better than anything that he could do with what he's got right now.
You've got a bias, but yeah, I think it's fun to do this.
I
There's
do
just
have a
something about
bias.
there's something about I love doing that.
Yeah,
It's
but
just-
you know that really he just has
My
like
hair-
one really long hair, right? And they just kind of swirl it around his head until it.
that's what I'm doing,
forms.
bro. Look at this. This is crazy. This is crazy. It feels
You-
good.
If you wanted to, Andreas, you could do the full. I'm sorry to say it, but the full Hitler style thing. Like you have the hair for that. Like if I wanted to do that, I couldn't do that. And
I
neither could
can't.
Thomas.
I can't do the. Look at this though.
Oh, the
nothing-
middle part. It
Nothing
doesn't grow there.
grows. Nothing
Nothing
grows. It's like the anti. It's weird. Can't help it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
I
it's
was going
'cause
to
I
go
was
with Gary
raised by-
Oldman Fifth Element, but
It's probably because I had no male teachers
Oh.
until I got to high school.
That's
probably it.
right. Gary Oldman's character totally had that hair, and he had the plastic thing there, the thing wrapped around too.
Yeah, I mean, there's some way cooler Prussians that I can do the hair of, if that's what you're.
cooler than Gary Goldman. All right.
Somebody says,
Lord.
David, let's just say the ear is looking pretty damn good. WWE. I say Trump puts the ear in conspiracy. That's what I'm saying.
Not bad. Not bad.
What about you guys want to talk about the man with 1,000 babies, the super donor dude?
Yeah, I've seen a couple documentaries on this dude. I've seen a bunch of. There's a Lifetime like horror movie that was kind of based on this premise.
You know what I think though? I think all right, hot take. Women that couldn't find partners that they wanted to marry to have kids with, or had like issues and they were like lesbians and things like that. Like I saw the documentary on Netflix. They all had some subconscious self-esteem issue about not feeling special. This guy very quickly made them feel special, which is not the role of a donor. They're supposed to be kind of anonymous to an extent, and yet they've turned it into a catalog system. And so here's a guy who's kind of won the Darwinism pole of contemporaneous aesthetic because he's blonde, blue-eyed, and male, and like that is in this particular moment, it's like that wins if you just cut out all the filters for everything like that. And all of a sudden they find out they're not special. Like they're special, but the only thing that's special about them is that he gave them, made them into mothers of really great children, right? But there's 1,000 of them, right? And that's what I think people are weirded out. They're like, oh my God, there's 1,000. And I think then there's another group of people that are saying, hey, that's our job. We're the elite. You know, we do that. We go around the world and we Epstein the world. You know what I mean? Like we're creating new races. Like this guy is essentially creating 11,000 people within 100 years or something like that that will compete with the royal family's efforts and everything like that. And they've made it into this like, oh, he's this nightmare, because really he just like succeeded at the ultimate. He just Brigham Young super hard. Like is this not like de facto apotheosis? Through Shinzoism.
This should be a reality show. They should have like 100 women deciding amongst 100 men. Like whoever wins essentially becomes one of these like super donors. And I almost think that there could be like a full national campaigns over who becomes these super donors, because like you could actually opt in to being part of a true legacy and see it through. You know what I mean? Without having the funds or the resources that the elite class would. You would just have to be involved in like a reality. If you called and dialed the number 190 or whatever, just like Sam Newsman style voting.
Dude, I saw a documentary the other day from PBS on eugenics and the sterilization and all this stuff in America. So it was the whole thing was like focused on America pre-World War II. And then at the very end, they go into the Nazis' application of it. But much of it started in America, and then no one ended up showing up to their big conference, and it was just like a bunch of old white people sitting there at a table ready to tell people about eugenics, but like no one was interested anymore.
Well, the main difference was basically America did it in the private sector, and Germany did it in the public sector. That's like the main difference between those two. America incentivized through sort of
yes
get
and
money
no,
or tax breaks or
like
I think Germany was smaller.
After
so,
watching Yeah, after watching this documentary, I could say that there's truth to that, and at the same time, there is a
California-
public element as well. So
California
it's like,
definitely had laws. I was just reading about the Finnish, right? And the Finnish were called the China Swedes. They weren't allowed to be classified as white, and they weren't allowed to be classified as black, and they were classified essentially as Mongoloid or Asian, is what a lot of the the doctors were saying. They're doing it basically on linguistics and everything else. But there was super weird racism in California where they systematically sterilized Basques on like this was the state that did it, and there were laws against being Asian. Like you couldn't own property. There's reasons why California, even though it was settled by the Japanese, we think of it as like Spanish, you know, or Irish even. Like it's not like logical except for the fact that they just legally couldn't exist. And so, yeah, we did when the Germans in Nuremberg during the Nuremberg trials were the eugenicists were defending themselves. They're like, we were just copying California, and you could read like books on eugenics in California. It was crazy, you know.
that's what this documentary showed. PBS is sometimes pretty good with their documentaries. I mean, I was just like, it leaves more questions too. Like watching it, I'm like, I'm curious about this because there's the Tree of Life program that they don't make mention of in Germany, and the way that it was treated as such a positive thing, and then it was really easy to flip it because of all the implications involved. And you'll see that a lot of times with like, you know, any kind of pseudoscience where it has truth elements. It's like a kernel of truth, and then all this other stuff built around it, which then has implications. And so they were basically getting to a point where they could rationalize sterilization, and like they were like,
that's
and
what
also
bothers me, because this guy here has now been legally prohibited from reproducing. He will get a fine of $100,000 if anywhere in the world his sperm is now illegal. That is crazy.
Now I kind of want some. That's almost making me want some of the.
Is it really? That's all it takes.
I mean, now all of a sudden you tell me I'm not allowed to have any.
So I mean, right?
I mean,
That's
there's
crazy.
certain things that they're going to tell you that you can't have that you probably don't want either. But you know,
I don't know. I'm going to be.
I think he's kind of had his turn, right? I mean, he's done better than I think anyone really could do. If you're talking about it in like a truly generational sense,
right? Well, this was Epstein's ambition. That's like to do something very similar to this. Like he wanted his sperm and he wanted as many babies produced with his DNA as possible, and like
so
was trying
how many
to.
people are doing this right now and not getting caught?
Right. Totally. Yeah, no, it's a good question. And just because this guy got that many, I mean, it's a good paying job. Like you could do this for a living, just donate your sperm. But everything that's required of you, like there's like, you know, the way that they test and make sure, and like your whole lifestyle and all these things play into it. I mean, otherwise I'd be living large right now. I mean, that's the way to go. You know, talk about like money for nothing, you know, that's like I might get a blister on my finger, you know.
That's true for certain things but like actually it's not quite that bad. If you don't want to, if you're not trying to make a bunch of money off of it, for instance, they're talking about the Kenya clinic. People can get paid to go to the Kenya clinic because they're European or European descent. So there are circumstances where it's just he's not getting paid to do this. He just wanted to game the world really hard.
Right, I know that about him. I'm just saying that like I've looked into it, and like there's a place in San Jose, and you look at how much they pay, and it's like, damn, that's like a job. Like, and it's not just a one-time thing. Like they want you to keep producing your sperm for them. So I'm just like, wow, what a gig.
Yeah, but like, they do have limitations. Like they want to have limits of like 25 kids that you're allowed to produce, or 20 kids, or something like that. And they've done a lot of things to try to like stop that. This guy was going around the system a lot of the time as well, and finding people, because on the internet it was a little like way cheaper to meet somebody in person. You know, and that's what I guess he just gamed Holland super hard. But did we watch this thing the other week about you don't descend from all your ancestors, right? This idea that you think of DNA as a super complicated system, but there's really only 2 to 4, you know, there's systems of hex data that you can get, which means that your base pairs of 3.1 billion out of ancestors from, let's just go back to 1225, 4.3 billion, right? You're not able to store all that data. And even just going back in terms of how data is recorded, big chunks of it are lost. So within 1 or 2 generations, your DNA is so vastly different from your cousin's DNA. It's not the same DNA. People forget this, and they seem to like push that. Oh man, like you would be. I just think about the royal families. Like clearly they inbreed like to an extent, and they exist. There
For
are
sure.
ways that they're going about it where it's through the second generation of a cousin. You know, it's not like their brother or something like that.
Right,
Right.
but one of the ultimate premises here is that if you had some kind of divine blood, that would be one of the things that could never be diluted or corrupted, right? That would be the premise of having.
That's
Like,
No, I
that's
think-
like the premise, but that's a weird belief.
I don't think that it's not true that it could never be corrupted, and that's the point. Because it could be deleted or corrupted, it has to be kept specifically reproducing a certain way, and that's why they do it the way they do. Where certain genes are kept in one family, and then the cousins, after they've kept those genes, then those cousins marry across, and that way they're able to keep that identical sequence because they know both cousins have that sequence in the same place.
Well, according to Fraser, this was one of the functions of the Golden Bough was just a protection against ancestral inbreeding, which was, you know, within royalty was kind of like they had to make a safeguard for that because they're
Right.
like, you guys, they knew what it meant.
Y'all
you know?
crazy.
Yeah.
Y'all getting crazier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting that you go back a few generations and you see most of the data is gone. Like if you go, this is looking at the yellow here, the parts of the DNA after 3 generations before Charles, all the yellow is what's left from his original. 4 generations, 5 generations, very quickly you lose most of the data. It's not stored. And this is even in the royal family where they're marrying across to people that have the same genes. So it doesn't work that way. You don't descend from all your ancestors, and you end up losing DNA along the way. You lose a lot of DNA to the point that you're basically a new epigenetic creation by that point. Now you're keeping certain junk DNA sequences, but that's also different too.
Yeah, but I mean, they had this whole thing where they were royalty was using marriage to unite different countries. And so the idea is that was another means of you want to unite countries, and producing children is a very direct way to do that. But also I think that there's a Golden Bough element in that too, because then you're really moving it out of the small pond, you know, like that's kind of like that serves a similar function than to have this outsider challenge the king and for him to give up his throne. But I think what we're seeing in the world right now, with both Trump and Biden, is very like it's like the Dark Crystal when they don't want to let go of that scepter, and he's just like, I am still the emperor, and it's like, dude, like the whole thing of like to relinquish your power like with grace or graciously, you know.
Don't they make us pull a king kill ritual up in here, old man?
Oh, right. Well, that's the thing that it brings up, and that's a difficult one, right?
And Trump's like, lend me your ears. Like he's just like whacking with him.
Right, which is the thing with the lend me your ears thing, because wasn't that in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, that's what, Act 3, Scene 2 or whatever, it's after Caesar's killed and he's like, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Like there's something to that.
There sure is. Yeah. The stabbing of Julius Caesar.
And I don't know if I brought it up on here, but also the premise that alchemists, whenever they were caught to be a fraud, or if you wanted to mark somebody, then they would basically clip their ear. And that was it's the same thing with like stray dogs. When they neuter dogs, if it's a female or a male, they'll just clip the left or the right ear, so that there's like this unwritten hobo code of whether or not a dog's been neutered. It's the kind of the same thing that they do to people, and that's the mark. That's the way. That's the one thing that you can't really. It's your scarlet letter, so that now you can't apply for the next job. They kind of know that you've got like a sorted past.
Are you saying that symbolically Trump was basically neutered?
Well, so that's the question earlier, because Sparrow was saying, could they not have made the ear look worse? And so I wonder about that too, because obviously wouldn't you put all of your time and money into your medical for the president? So he's going to get like grafted skin with anti-clonal and
I've seen an ear grow on the back of a mouse. So
yeah, I would have grown
one on the side of.
That's what I'm saying. I would have grown an ear for him, right? It's kind of.
Yeah,
I bet
took a while.
That they've got like a whole fridge full of Trump ear mice now, just as backups.
Well, that's probably true too. They probably have a lot of his flesh groaning. Like they could easily be doing that.
The doctor said that he didn't require stitches, right? I don't know if you want to take his doctor's word for anything.
Just kind of cleared up Wolverine style.
Well, that's the thing, is that Wolverine and Deadpool just came out, right? And so like all night I had like I shouldn't say it, but I had like a bootleg, and I was trying to sync it with the new Eminem album because the previous Eminem album, Kamikaze, paired with Deadpool 1 and 2 really well, like at the same time. Like I have a whole thing there, so I was like trying to pair the new one. By the way, that's a pretty good album. Like he was pretty cringe when he was going off on Trump there. Like, what are you doing? Like there was like a period. Like I'm no fan of Trump, but that was bad. Do I have to qualify that? It was bad. Everybody knows it. But it was pretty good. You know, he's tackling culture war stuff and whatever. He's being Eminem. He's being like classic Eminem, and that's what I like to see. Is that's, you know, Slim Shady. But
Is this kid trans? Like, why does he hate Trump so much? Like, what's going on?
I mean, it's I think that there's just a media saturation that people have experienced, and they have all kinds of reactions to it. And Trump derangement syndrome works in multiple directions, in multiple ways. Anytime that you focus on something,
Eminem's kid is non-binary. Okay, well there you go.
Oh, is he? Somebody said that in the chat,
Are they?
or you just looked it up?
Yeah, I looked it up just now on the Sun. It could be a lie, but here, let me look at the picture here. Meet Stevie, Eminem's Child, comes out as non-binary and now goes by Stevie as family shows support. Well, good for...
They look like they're catfishing, though, in that picture.
Which is a whole other like social ethical problem we have to worry about.
I think it's maybe just more proof that there's a certain element that's obviously like, screw you, Dad, I'm doing this thing that's the total antithesis. It's like Hegelian, you know, like
maybe he's trying.
How do you rebel when
he's trying to untrans his daughter by being so into like the left, and we said, "Look, I'm freaking woke, Stevie."
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I hate you now. I'm just gonna
dude, it's the same thing with Elon. What do you expect, dude? Like, if you're like, I have a friend whose dad is just like, he's like a sound engineer, and he just like sets up festivals, and his son like grew up going to festivals and partying. And I've seen him throughout his childhood trying to rebel against his dad. And it's like, how do you do that? Like his dad's like cool as hell.
To lose it all the way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like so, when your dad's just like this icon or whatever, I cannot even imagine, because this is just like, you know, I'm describing like a low level of society, like relative to somebody like Elon, who's like at top echelon. And so
Wiley's dad worked in ran India Joe's, right, which is like the best restaurant in Santa Cruz. His son would like get like Taco Bell and things just to upset him, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, exactly. I like the taste. It's $1.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Rebel.
Yeah. What are you gonna do to be edgy to your dad? You know, like I don't know.
That's honestly a very interesting, like, philosophical question. Like, how do you rebel against Eminem, right? When he's the poster child for like the rebellion of his own period. So now you get to see like the very real version of rebelling against that. The antithesis.
Yeah, they're like, I'm gonna get a job at the DNC.
That's what I keep.
You'll be sorry.
That's what I keep hoping, though, is it's going to be like Family Ties or something like that. It should be that the kids are rebelling by wearing suits to school. Like we could have a mod or yuppie like resurgence. Well, the scary thing about that is when it comes, I keep seeing it and people keep talking about like the Olympics. Everyone's like, "Oh God, the Olympics! It's it's sacrilegious." Like, no, it's not. I mean, especially if it's a cult, then that would be like pro-religious. Well, it's against my religion. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Like, if you think that this is kind of, I mean, there's the Simpsons doing it, and you were cool with that. There's, like, everyone does it. Everyone does the Last Supper painting, and we did the Dionysus convo like a bit about it yesterday. But I mean, it's not something outside of religious.
I don't know.
It's not religious freedom. It's religious protection at that point. Because at that point, if it's freedom, then they can do it. If it's protection, then you're saying that this was as offensive to you as someone drawing a cartoon of Muhammad. That's where you're at now. You're basically like that if you're upset about this.
It's so much harder for me to relate to a lot of the analogies that come. Like, even if you bring up The Simpsons, because The Simpsons is still very much at that point, it's like a national thing. But this is essentially
beyond national
world.
This is transnational. Transnational. Yeah.
It is. Touche.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the freaking Olympics. That's the thing. Also, like the Olympics. I talked about this on base already, but the Olympics was naked. You were naked. Yeah. You were naked, right. And there was like Greek oil, and it's Greek.
Let's bring this back to the original Olympics. They didn't do any gay stuff ever.
Yeah, like what do you like? I would be upset if I were like. I'm confused why you're not upset. It's not gayer. That's kind of the thing. Because if it's the Olympics, it should be Ganymede should be being like literally accosted by Zeus naked, right? And Budweiser should be selling ice cream and beer like they used to with pictures of it happening.
But
Because that's what the Olympics was.
It does have Ganymede, right?
That was
Does
the.
it
Right,
This is.
it's
I mean,
all-
this is not a metaphor. The Olympics was literally endorsed and sponsored by Budweiser with pictures for the Olympics of Ganymede, which is the Olympic symbol of Zeus accosting. Let's keep saying that word. Graping this boy, right? And that. I mean. And you're buying it with beer, and then during the Prohibition, alcohol has gone, so you're buying ice cream with Ganymede on it.
Right, but there
that's
also
Olympics.
this is a conflation because we're treating it that this was a topic yesterday, was that we're like, or at least my contribution to it is like I see the pride flag as being commandeered, not so much even from like what Harvey Milk did with it from the Rainbow Family of Love and Light, who in 2002 were number 7 on George Bush's terrorist list for whatever reason. I think because they were like wanting people to live off the grid and stuff, or at least encouraging that kind of lifestyle. But anyway, that flag was a symbol of inclusivity for the Rainbow Family. And then when that same symbol was adopted in San Francisco, which has obviously its connection to the Rainbow Family and the Deadhead scene and all this stuff, which is also what Burning Man came out of.
Speaking of which, have you seen the bear flag? Because it's kind of based in a weird gay way, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, does it make you kind of want to be a bear? I feel like
Right,
all
but this is the thing is that now we have a bear flag. Like for that symbol of the Rainbow Family was inclusivity for everybody. Like it wasn't just a gay symbol necessarily.
But
like,
this is cool because, like, don't tread on me. The bear literally tread on this flag. Come on.
Right, but would we be saying that we have like in that flag, you'd be like, okay, well, does the most brown people, this represents these people? Is this like a gradient thing? Because you'd be like, these are the blue people, and these are the red people, and these are the orange people,
How come
or
it's not
whatever.
touching the white people?
Yeah, no, it was a symbol that was supposed to represent inclusivity, and it became an exclusivity symbol when we said these, like when you added that triangle and you're like, these people need to be included, these people need to be included. It's like, dude, it's a freaking rainbow. The whole point was that everyone's included. And so like that right there was the trick, because now something under the guise of unity is being used to divide. And so and how a lot of LGB people feel about the TQXRQ24 people is like, you know, there's a disjoint there for a lot of them. Like you have like gays against groomers and this kind of thing.
Wait, was that a joke or is that a real acronym? I just have to ask.
I thought it was about Whoopi Goldberg and Theodore Rex again, because he's the bionic. And,
TQR.
No, I was just adding to the plus, because
Okay.
you have these letters and then you're like, and the plus, and this the whole thing is that wasn't even necessarily like in its beginnings an LGB flag in the first place. It was an inclusivity symbol.
You're reckless. You got too many genders. Yeah, exactly. That's where we're going.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Like that's where we're legitimately at that. I like the Wifala flag. So if you get a rainbow flag, get yourself a Wifala. This is the Bolivian Aboriginal flag of the many tribes. It's like, so everybody around the world who is of them. I mean, this is supposed to represent anybody's indigenous sovereign tribe. Like in Romania too. You're cool. Like everybody. So I like this one. Kind of minorly Masonic with the checkered, but there you go.
I think it's a dick move to just try and take ownership over the entire freaking color spectrum and order. Like, the rainbow isn't really something up for grabs for people to just take ownership of.
That was the point, is that Rainbow Family, they didn't own it. That was the whole point. Like that's exactly what I'm saying.
Legit.
And that it wasn't supposed to be something that even could be commandeered, and that was supposed to be the beauty of it. And it's a total paradox to be like, oh, actually we need to include these people too. It was like, no, this was supposed to be all inclusive. I'm sorry I keep reiterating that, but it's just like, that's insanity.
Croats are like, no way, no Yugo tribal flag. There's another thing though, which is that the pre-Columbians used a symbol like this, or used pretty much like the rainbow checkered symbol on their flag as well. So I mean, you know, if the ancient Bolivians were using it, it's kind of like the Batman logo in Spain. As long as you've been using it for a long time, kind of okay with that. Is that cool?
Batman symbol in Spain? Tell me about that.
So like Valencia, Spain. Valencia, Spain.
It's like the Bacardi logo.
Yeah. Basically, like the Batman movie people, like the comic book people, like DC, they wanted to sue Valencia because their soccer team has this bat on their thing, and they're like, you know, you can't use our bat. Batman's had a trademark on that bat since like 1940, and they're like, you know, we've been using this bat since like 1112 AD, like since like before the Islamic occupation of Spain. It's like,
So was DC gonna like sue like the coronavirus lab or something? Like, sorry.
God, I wish. Or like, yeah, especially for the umbrella thing. But yeah, the bat goes back like 1,000 years or more. So then DC had to like lay off, things like that, right?
Right.
If you have the right to it. What about the Earth slowing down? The spinning of the Earth's inner core slowing down. Is this how it all ends?
I don't know. Sounds like that's the doomsday apocalypse. The day that the cores slowed down.
There's supposed to be a thing where like the inside and the outside. I don't know. This is how are we supposed to
maybe
NASA if we can't talk about the globe? Come on. It's fine.
This might just feel completely arbitrary, but I almost feel like slowing down feels less urgent than if they said it was speeding up. Like, if they told me the core was speeding up. Now I'm actually a little bit concerned about it.
Yeah, you're like, dude, everyone needs to chill out. Maybe this is what it takes.
Right, yeah.
So just everybody cool out. Is this the Earth trying to tell us to cool out,
Yeah,
I feel like
you guys got carried away.
But you ever like driving around and you don't want to stop your car because you just feel slightly more comfortable while you're moving, even though there's like nothing, you're just kind of driving. I feel like that's how we are. If we were to like be too long in one place or anything like that would be uncomfortable. So the idea of constantly being moving, even moving faster, seems like better because I'm constantly not stuck here, not stuck at this like intersection.
Maybe you're also expending way more energy. Like there's also a certain like perfect coasting amount, right? There's a coasting speed where you can maximize your basically like your miles per gallon. And that's kind of what you want to achieve, right? That would be like the ultimate balance.
Yeah, somebody commented here. They say the rainbow was stolen as a psyop, which is funny because there's Hodorowski's The Rainbow Thief, but the rainbow was stolen as a psyop because the Rainbow Fam was sweeping the nation in the late '90s. Seen some shite, got a file for hipping. But what I'm arguing is that I don't think that Harvey Milk stole anything with that. I think he was like, it was a well-intentioned thing, but then flash forward to way more recently, they took it and made it into an exclusive symbol, which is divisionary,
Which is why like the rainbow's like banned now because LGBTQ don't feel like it represents them, so it's a bad symbol. It's like an outdated symbol to them, which is cool for us.
I guess.
Like, get the rainbow back. I wanted the rainbow back. I thought it was like not fair.
Right, and I want to have just like gay back too. That you're feeling gay, you're happy, like whatever.
Yeah, like the Flintstones. Yeah, same thing with like weird. Like I feel like weird and queer. Twas a queer evening upon the.
Right.
Bring it back, bro. Like they can't have all the words.
I got some other ones I'd like to say, but I shouldn't say them because it's a podcast.
How else are we gonna bring them back?
Yeah.
What about
without a strike would be nice.
Speaking. Well, what about fascism? So I was looking at
not a fan.
Well, so the Senate speech, right? And they were talking. She had this. I can't even find it now. Senate room. They're talking in the room, and she's standing there, and in the room you've got all these blue. I also noticed this because when Israel was having Netanyahu speak. They're in the room that has all the little blue and yellow swastika everywhere, right? And then they've got the fascies up on the wall.
Which is also a bundle of sticks, technically.
Right.
Yeah, you saw the segue. But my thought was, isn't that kind of like the symbol for fascism, fam?
That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what David Icke says. I'm reluctant to not believe him.
Which is also kind of funny because the fasci essentially amounts to being able to rule through force, right? Like actual, like the threat of force, like a threat of being beaten by this fasci is the ultimate power. And whoever gets to wield this thing and can beat you with it basically gets to rule everybody. I mean, that's like the most oversimplified version.
It's there like, yeah, like here, it just seems kind of interesting to me that they were talking about fascism. They were talking about how they're against fascism, and they're standing in between two golden pillars that are the fascies, and it's just also the S, kind of that weird, the way the laurel wreath is sort of an S, like the sigil for realization, because the dollar sign is the two lines through the S, right, which is that realization of dreams, a Sumerian symbol.
Totally. It also looks like the pattern of the lightning flash in the cobblestick tree, and we're looking at two pillars. And isn't like fascia, like muscularly, like etymologically, the same source as fascist? for that
Bro,
reason.
there's 2 pillars between 2 pillars. It's crazy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I heard you like pillars, so we put some pillars within your pillars, so you can
Pillars
judge while you judge. You know what I'm saying?
So I just feel like, how do they do it? How is everyone not like? Aren't we all seeing the same thing? How are they not able to talk? How are they able to go on without mentioning that there are these symbols for fascists behind them? And why is this not strike fear into the hearts of people? Let alone the yellow swastikas on their chairs.
Right. Fascia actually applies to what's around the sticks, right? Isn't that the wrap? Or am I wrong?
I think it's like the connection. So like a muscle in muscle, you talk about muscle fascia. Muscle fascia is what surrounds every part of your body, right? And you might even say like the car radio fascia is like the plastic that goes around your car stereo. So fascia is used to describe, like that.
Right, but you
that
see what I'm
connection,
saying?
that
Like if you're
bundling.
looking at that symbol with the axe and the bundle of sticks,
Yeah.
it would be what's wrapping it would actually be the fascia, no? Like speaking to that.
Isn't it the fascia when it has the wrapping, or is that not true? Maybe
I
you're
thought
right.
that
Maybe just in other words, hemp rope would kind of be, or leather strap would be like fascia itself. But I think it's just the act of doing it.
Interesting.
And those are also, I had to look it up, but those are ionic columns too, which has like its own, like, not just Masonic, but mythological connotations with what it represents.
Right.
Like of the column types.
Yeah, I'm like right now I feel like it was in like Children of the Matrix from David Icke where the first place where I came across these arguments around why this symbol represents fascism as it apparently does. But yeah. Strange.
Well, I mean, the explanation that I've heard that was like the non-Ikean explanation was that it's almost like speak soft and carry a big stick, that those are the big sticks that they're talking about, that you have the threat of force and you basically have the power of using these fasci, but that you're not using them and that they're just mounted up on the wall as decoration. But there is something almost nefarious where it's like looming over you, like, hey, just as a reminder, these things are here in case it gets out of hand. But I think that the implication is supposed to be that, like, they're coated in bronze, they're not real, they're symbolic, and the fact that they're symbolic is what's meaningful about it.
So what I hear there is that these symbols are being ignored, and that in the future they will be recharged.
Right. It's basically what Stargate. It's where like all of the Anunnaki come back to life.
And probably like this is kind of the thing. Like when people talk about, I've seen some videos talking about, are we headed towards a new emperor or like a god emperor society? And this is even before the Trump assassination attempt.
This is like a new version of Sword in the Stone where Trump actually just walks up to the fasci and grabs it and it like materializes in his hand.
Well, it just, I mean, if this symbol hasn't been canceled, that's interesting, isn't it? That's kind of weird. Like the symbol is not canceled. It's right there it's the all-American symbol that we don't talk about.
Interesting. Yeah, and then there's all the other stuff. Like if you're looking at the courtroom thing, the idea that when you cross that line to talk to the judge, it's symbolic of you going on a boat to talk to the ship's captain, and that it's maritime law is actually the law of the system and all this kind of stuff. So
shout out Jordan Maxwell.
Does Jordan Maxwell talk about that too?
Yeah, that's like one of his most famous speeches is all about maritime law and like the birth canal and having to like, you know, sign a birth certificate to represent the goods that you're bringing into a mercantile society from some external source.
Right, all capitals. Your name isn't all capitals because that's what's actually owned by the state. And then there's like your natural self, which is distinct from that, which is interesting because what that brings up for me is, I think, well, what would one of the values be, say, of like getting initiated to higher levels of a secret society that actually, like, you know, has some like you're rising up the social chain? Is it possible that because they treat it, that moving up these levels is like a symbol of enlightenment, that perhaps, this is super speculation, I've never heard anyone else say this that I can remember, but what if that's like the perk of getting to the top, is that now you are your natural self, that you don't have a double for the state, you're no longer owned by the state, you're liberated. And so maybe that's like kind of like a externalization of spirituality in the material world, even though it's still not that, it's not the thing, but you could treat it like that. Like suppose you're not just 33rd degree, you're 93 degree or whatever they have. I forget what the other degrees are that are supposed to not exist, but they do. Like
Technically
Leo's Gami talks
99 in
about.
Memphis Miserium. I'm sure it goes higher than that.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying, like, what if you get there and then they're like, that's the deal. Now you don't, your name is no longer in all capitals at all. Now you're this, so you'd be untouchable. Like, and if they ever tried to charge you on anything, they couldn't get you to make that connection. You're separate from your natural self, you know.
What's the Mormon version of this, Andreas? There's like a certain level you can get in Mormonism where we're basically describing this. You get like the ultimate hall pass, where like once you reach the certain level, second anointing, it's like the ultimate checkpoint. You can't go back from there.
Like, you get popped for something, and immediately there's like somebody gets told, no, they're their natural self,
right?
Like, there is no double there. Like, let them go, or else, you know,
like a
you'll
step
get
above
in trouble.
Being like an Israeli diplomat's son.
I've known one of them. So not a diplomat, but I knew a guy, and Andreas, you may have known him too, and maybe I don't want to say his name on here, but this is years ago. But I was told by friends that he was essentially untouchable. And his job was to distribute MDMA in the United States for his father, who had a factory basically that was producing it in the territories outside Israel. And I had heard that. I'd heard. What's that?
It sounds like this was for a good cause.
So like I didn't believe it when I first heard that about him, even though he's a really interesting character, this guy. And like I'm like, I don't know, but he had this big like silver bullet bus that's just beautiful.
Why would you go, like, what would be the benefit of being skeptical about that?
So well, it's just I was a teenager. And so like I'm talking about when I was like 17, 18 years old, and my friends hung out with this guy, and I always felt like he was like, you know, acting like such a big shot. And I was like, is he really a big shot? You know, and why does he want to hang out with all these teenagers? Like, it seemed weird to me because he's older than us. And then one day I was in his freaking bus, and I was like, somebody had told me that he had a bathroom in there. So I was like looking for the bathroom, and I opened up a door, and it was just kilos of MDMA, what I guess was MDMA, stacked up in the whole room was just filled with it. And like I just opened the door, and I saw that, and I closed the door, and I was like, okay, it's all true. Like, everything they said was true. That's this guy's job. But what I also heard was, although he was technically untouchable because he was such and such his son and this was his job or whatever, that if you push the envelope too much, they might not let him do that job anymore, you know? So that was one of the things. Like, he couldn't just be completely, oh, whatever, I don't care, because, you know, hey, you're getting a pass here.
Yeah, you've been demoted to bodies now. Now you got to move bodies. Sorry.
Right. But he would literally, like, he put it through customs and bring it over, and it was like, but it was attached to him, so it was just like allowed to, like, it was luggage that was like put aside, like special, like, this is, you know, like, you're allowed to do this somehow. Like, I don't know, it's crazy, but I believe it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of double agents in our contemporary time, and it would make for better television, but they don't want people to know about it, right? Like, that was such a common thing in the 50s to have a show like I Led 3 Lives, and there'd be double agents living with the Americans for a few years there, right? But people don't like to think about how many people are able to live double lives and walk amongst us, right?
Right. Like, I don't know how else. This is why I believe it, is because I don't know how else he would have had all those bags there. Like, how did he do that? Like, that's absolutely crazy. Like, and I know where it came from because that's where he was from. So, okay. Anyway, whatever. I'm not quick to like believe people sometimes when they say outlandish things about people that I know, you know.
Yeah, you should be skeptical, you know. I just think in certain circumstances it's so dangerous because, like, they're like warning you. They're like, hey, careful, this guy, like, is insane and, you know, doesn't have normal limits, you know, placed upon him, so he's not considering the ramifications the same way as another person might.
Yeah, I tend to default to, whenever someone says something outlandish, my default reaction is to believe that they believe that and then act accordingly. Like, even if I don't believe it, like, I believe 100% of the things that you say, I believe that you believe them. So even if you're being coy or you're like trying to like pretend, like, I just think you're crazy and you're still that way.
Right. I'm thinking of, like, there's been a few times in my life, I don't know if I shared this before, about like Tool's Opiate. Do you know the album Opiate on vinyl? Like, what you can do with that album? Do you know about this? So there's a song, Between the Grooves, So like it's the first song on side B of Tool's album Opiate, and I don't know if this is on all pressings of it, but it's definitely on the one that I own. And I had listened to it so many times. I used to work at a record store, and I would put that record on, and if you just let the needle slide in, it's gonna play the song that it's supposed, like the normal song that would go in sequence. But if you go in, you drop the needle inside the grooves, it'll play the "I had a friend once, he took some acid, now he thinks he's a fire engine. It's okay until he pisses on your lighter," whatever. That song, "I had a friend once, he took some ecstasy, tried to marry me and everyone in the room." That's Satan's song. Like that is in between the grooves. And so like I just actually I sent a tweet to Sean Lennon about this recently, and he actually like he responded back, but he didn't know of another example of it. I don't even think he knew that one. But I was like, this has got to go back. The fact that you can do this, because if you look at the record, you'd have no idea. Like it just looks normal. But like, yeah. So I was like, I was tripping all night with a friend, and I was trying to show it to him in the morning. I was like, no, dude, there's a song between the grooves, and like it's a secret song. And I was like, but I was thinking it was side A, and I kept on trying over and over again. And he was like, it's Jesse Goldsmith. So he was like cool at first,
wow.
like, oh yeah, okay. And then he started looking at me with these bug eyes, like I was absolutely insane. And it was one of those things where he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just believe that you believe it and leave it at that. But I can't show him. I'm trying to show him. And then when I eventually flipped the record and I was like, oh, there it is. And then he was like, he saw it. I went back and forth. And I was like, it's this song? No, it's this song. No, it's this song. But like, yeah, but I that's a really scary thing. I don't know if you've ever experienced somebody looking at you, like starting to realize for themselves that they really are kind of like, are you absolutely insane? And I've like been hanging out with you and like I didn't realize it or something, that you like have this weird thing about you or whatever.
That's the thing that kind of weirds me about Jesse though, because like we've had way weirder conversations, and then it'll be something as simple as like there might be a hidden song, and he'll think that that's insane. You know what I mean?
Right. That's crazy. Like, why would they do that? So
yeah, we can talk about Palladians and Michael Jackson, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I've been showing sync films to people since I was in junior high. It's like one of the most regular things I've had in my life. And something that I've noted is that more often than any other thing, because sometimes people have things that they kind of like compulsively just feel the need to say if they're getting into it. Like if I have somebody sitting down for an hour and a half or something watching a full sync film, there's things that they'll say out loud that they just can't help but have come out. Not in all cases, but just like people do this. People will say, why would they do that? And they'll repeat it out loud, sometimes over and over again, just like because they're saying it to themselves, and they're like, because something will happen and then another thing will happen if they're paying attention at all, and they'll just be like, why would they do that? And so one time I had a housemate named Paul Holleran, who was in the Lawgivers from the UK, and I was showing him what I do with sync film stuff, and he just goes to me, he goes, oh yeah, well, why wouldn't they do that? And I was like, oh, interesting. I'm used to people saying, why would they do that? And he's like, no, dude, why wouldn't they do that? He's like, I did that. And he was like, when he produced an album in a studio, it gave you the option for a video accompaniment, and they used this old sci-fi movie from like the 60s or something. And he was like, it allowed us to kind of like, as we were laying out the album, to kind of relate to it in like a cinematic way, just because it gave them the option. So he was like, we produced this album like over this film, and then that was just for us. Like that wasn't for anybody else. Like that was just our process, because it gives you that option. And so he was like, of course they would do that. And I was like, wow, what a distinct thing from what I was used to. People be like, why would they do that? You know, it's like they're completely opposite takes. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like people are afraid of the idea of meaninglessness also, because there doesn't need to be as much meaning. I mean, that's a really practical explanation, and someone might be saying, okay, well, there must be some really diabolical reason if they're doing something like that. Otherwise, they're not doing it. It's like, actually, it might just be as practical as it helps them with their process. And then
there's also a thing that you'll see even like from like behind the scenes stuff with the Beatles, and the way that they'll talk about things, and they'll just talk about their fan base going quote unquote crackers. They're like, oh, this one will drive them crackers. So they know. And like if they were ever in any circumstances to ever acknowledge something like that, it would destroy the whole thing. So they couldn't. If you're entertaining that was real, that there was some degree of intentionality, whether that's done really mechanically or not, whether it's just like kind of like a intention and kind of like the nature of magic that things align to a degree on their own, so you just give it that push and then you get whatever effect and concept album shared with the film, whatever. Like, you know, that's something that would be for them. It wouldn't necessarily be for the public. And that's why I think Paul in his reaction to that, why like his treatment of it is like, well, yeah, this is something we would do for ourselves. Like, why wouldn't you? Because now you have a relationship to that thing that when it gets distributed, that not everybody else will have, unless if they're hip enough to add 2 and 2, you know, in which case they're alone with it and it'll make them feel crazy, maybe, you know. So
well, I think there's also a part of this too where like right now occultism almost equates to being like nefarious or bad. So almost anything that is hidden, it seems that it's hidden for some nefarious reason, as opposed to like there's good reasons to occult things, right? Or at least maybe that's just like the demon inside of me talking.
No, that's it. And that's why
During
I think
the
that
war,
Paul
it was
related
taken
to
for
it.
granted, right? That you had to occult things for wartime.
Yeah, because for Paul that wasn't anything nefarious in the slightest. It was just like, here's like how we're putting this thing together. We see it from this end. Other people, that's true for making music in general. Like some people don't like to watch music being made. Like I love to watch music being made. Like if I got friends, whether it's electronic or whatever, like because there's that process behind it. I like to see that process. Not everybody does. Some people hate watching music being made. You know what I mean? Because
I hate people watching me make music.
What do you think about the Police's new box set, or at the very least their 40th anniversary album of their album Synchronicity, right? Like Synchronicity, Police, anything? Any thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking of RFK because he said that it was this song that got him to look at Jung's synchronicity and a causal principle. He was like, oh, that's what they were singing about. What is that? Because the first place he'd heard the term was from the Police. And then the book like came his way, I think at a rehab. The book was just out somewhere. And then he was like, look, he just finished reading the book, the way the story goes. And he puts the book down and there's like some people playing like with a volleyball. And then the volleyball landed on a pole and it popped the ball or whatever. And then the ball went flying. And he said, that ball's going to get hit by a Mack truck. And he said he didn't know why he said it. But the ball goes flying, gets stuck on a fence for a second, falls to the other side, rolls into the road, and a Mack truck comes up like an 18-wheeler and just like hits the grill of the truck. And there's like 10 people standing there, and they're like, "How did you do that? Like, how did you know that?" And he's like, "I don't know." You know, he just finished reading Synchronicity and a Causal Principle, and was just like, it's a. Yeah, he intuited it or whatever.
It's kind of interesting. It's been 40 years, right? Like that idea to me that he's talking about that the synchronicity is becoming really important, and all of a sudden there's a push of the word for the justification of a number for the number 40, so that they can put it out into the public. Right? I mean, it's just normal people don't care about that word, but now it's going to be flooding their iPhones when they look at their Apple Music.
Oh, because of the anniversary part. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of arbitrary, like 40, whatever, but like it's a number, right? I don't know.
Well, it's Mem, 40 years in the desert, wandering, lost, and before you find the promised land, so it has symbolic significance, But Mem is water, and so there's like 40 days and 40 nights of the flood. So in Hebrew, the word for water, which if you spell it out, it's, what is it, Mem, I think, but the letter itself literally means water. So there's like this weird thing there.
What is let's see, 40 in Gematria is I am. Nice. It's pretty good.
Like not Ehie, but just like Yud Hey? 40, no. Yeah.
Also Gig Chat too.
Is this the link between people saying that water has memory too? Is through Mem?
Could be a thing. What do you think about that whole thing? Memory, water. What do you think?
I don't know. It shows up in 2001: A Space Odyssey with those different kind of cards on the screen that have the different acronyms or whatever. One of them is Mem.
I feel like I have a strong opinion about this.
What if we don't have any
guy's name?
We don't have any memory, but only water does. And if you tell me Dr. Emoto lied, okay, fine. That's your strong opinion that Dr.
I don't know
lied?
if it's lie, but so I've looked into this because I remember the first time I saw this, it was either What the Bleep Do We Know, or one of those. It might have been The Secret.
One
One
of
of
those
those two movies.
Nexium like sex cult
It was what? It was
documentaries.
what the bleep. He was in what the bleep.
So
Yeah.
in What the Bleep, and the way that it's presented, and I realize that it's got like a theatrical aspect to it, but they present it as though a bunch of people sit down and they basically meditate in front of this water, either as it's freezing or before they freeze it, and that some people are thinking,
Not
hate,
just
hate, hate,
any
hate, hate,
people,
hate, hate.
super awesome
And-
Japanese people.
And
Yeah.
and some people are thinking about love, and like they're all thinking about certain types of emotions, or they're instilling hate or love or different kind of aspects in front of this water. And the concept is that it crystallizes and then it visually represents these emotions or the words that they were saying. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, this changes everything. Like, are you saying that water understands language, or it can understand the intent behind language, and it can show you objectively? So anyway, long story short, you look into it, what happens is that they all do these things in front of water, and then they all freeze the water. But it wasn't like they found the person that was saying love. They found hearts in that person's water. What they did is, it's almost, to simplify
It's basically retarded. Because
they
because
cherry picked everything and then said,
Yeah.
"Oh, that looks like a heart," and this person was talking about love. That must be their crystallized, ice
I think
structure.
you're expecting the dolphin to talk back to you the same way that you're talking to the dolphin. If that makes any sense.
right, but the thing is that what he was able to supposedly what he was able to accomplish by being able to photograph water crystals microscopically, and did that in the first place, is just fascinating. And then to look at like damaged expressions of it, that's interesting too. So like, but the way he does it, where he's like, oh, you can see the outline of a gun because the person was angry. It's like, dude, you completely, like, whatever value was in your work, you just destroyed it with that literal crystal hippie like leap that you made.
Not really, because people still cite it constantly as being proof that water
They
has
can cite
emotions.
a lot
in
of
it.
things. I mean, that's like when I was just talking earlier about eugenics or something. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a kernel of truth in this, and look at where you've gone with it. Like, that's what it looks like to me. And it's just this whole thing too, is it justifies this whole, you don't harsh my vibes, like, that's negative energy or whatever. It's like, I'm made of water. Like, I have guns inside my body now from the way that you're
Thanks
acting.
a lot.
I feel like something that's often left out.
Fibromyalgia.
Something that's kind of often left out about this is Dr. Emoto had some affiliation with a group called Aum Shinrikyo. I don't know if you guys
really?
are familiar with this group. The
What's
Tokyo,
up with the olive?
The holy mountain temple, or the gods of the holy mountain, or
I was just playing with you.
when
I
you
know
when you
know.
translate the name, it actually sounds even more badass.
Oh, does he not have a connection with these people?
So the Doomsday Cult and the
What is this?
Matsumoto sarin gas attack, and they made cool video games too. There's
Wait,
actually
wait. Why am I looking at olive? Why is it Japanese and then it's olive? What am I?
Yep.
What?
We're about to go all into it. Let's start with the anime. This cult made these cool animes that were all about how you could learn how to like float if you hugged the leader of their cult. Because
Wait. Oh, I saw this in a documentary where they go
Yeah.
over different cults. Was that the one that had the Moonies in it too? And all
Well,
that
yeah,
stuff?
maybe, but I don't know.
They made their
Shoko
own
Asahara.
guns too. They had
Shoko
like a
Asa-
whole AK-47 manufacturing process that
Yeah.
sucked, and they made horrible versions of them.
But they made guns, they made video games, and they were a cult that cleaned houses that were filled
Dude,
with rats.
this would have like been the ultimate cult for me at age 13, guaranteed.
Right, but why Alf? Why is it Alf?
That's right. Yeah, what is the reason for that?
Why does it say Aleph and they have a symbol that almost like, I don't know if that doesn't, that looks like the Tibetan Om symbol. Like, what's happening?
It does kind of look like the Om symbol, but let's see here. Aleph right here. Aleph. Aleph.
Why?
Split into Aleph and Hikari no Wa in 2007. So Aleph was the name of the group once they split, I guess. That might be.
That's weird.
Yeah.
What's the Hebrew connection with the Japanese cult? I don't
2000,
get
it
it.
changed its name to Aleph, a reference to the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and also replaced its logo. I think it's also just because the Japanese consider themselves to be descendant from the original Lost Tribe, right?
Oh, I see.
That whole
Okay.
thing there too. Like, there's a lot of interesting cult to this whole idea. But the thing is, Dr. Emoto was associated with Shoko Asahara, and yeah, had like. he wasn't like involved with like the terrorist attacks or anything like that, but like he did like during the early stages of the cult, like he was. I mean, of course, they're an interesting group, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I think he even provided financial support.
But Dr. Emoto has no connection to this. You're joking.
No, seriously. He did. He donated money and stuff like that early on, but not to like the terrorist attack stuff. But to, like,
they're still active today.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
And I believe Heaven's Gate is too, although I feel like they kind of missed the bus.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's kind of like the thing about that cult is that they were at first popular. I mean, they had video games. They convinced people that he was a nice guy. In the late 80s, early 90s, it was more common, I think, for there to be those kinds of cults. And this was also before, like, they were, using sarin gas and, like, attacking people.
I wonder sometimes that how much things like King of the Hill and South Park have completely neutered the concept of a cult, because without that sort of like public humiliation ritual about making fun of cults, it almost seems like they might still have a little bit more allure, like not just Nexium style, because Nexium they get them with sex, right? But like specifically the Om Shinrikyo and the I guess the Heaven's Gate kind of style cults, like they get made fun of in all these cartoons and stuff. And
Right, but the joke, of course, you realize, is that we have these massive cults that exist in the world right now, and they would never think of themselves as a cult, any one of them. And so, like, that's what's happening. Like when we had Nina Paley on, and you could see she was just dying to talk about the cult on the left, but she didn't completely go there. She just kind of hinted at it. She's like, because we're talking about ideological movements and stuff, and it's like, it always happens where one side is like the other. Look at them; they're a freaking cult, and then they'll tell you all the reasons why they see that they're a cult, and then the other side will say that
cult though, because like cult following, part of that is like a small following. No,
see, this is the thing, right? Exactly. You're like, what is the difference between an organized religion and a cult? And for the most part, it just comes down to numbers. Like when your cult gets big enough, it's no longer a cult; it's an organized religion, and so like. And so what
tax exemption, I think, is the real delineator there.
Right. So at least you could say, as far as like religious people are concerned, it's easier to be like, oh yeah, they're a cult because you see we associate religions with cults. But if it doesn't matter if it's a belief system, just like you could say, talking about like the eugenics program and the people, their relationship to that program, like there's something huge, like a cult mentality that goes along with it, because you say this is settled science, and as soon as you have settled science, you have the recipe for a cult, because people are like, they'll make it into this belief system and then they can justify whatever through that. Like even like if you had like we want like a green movement, but like most green movements will express themselves cult-like in nature because you can justify anything for the good of the planet. Once you say that something's for the good of the planet, almost anything goes, because that's more important than everything that's on the planet that's temporary. You know what I mean? Just saying.
I feel like there could be a cult out there that's like taking man versus nature literally, though. Like nature. First blood, they struck first, and now it's on us to kind of strike back.
It doesn't. Anything can be a cult, and the thing is, though, is that I guess the point that I'm making is the nature of the backdoor thing that happens, where when somebody's attention is on something, and it's what Nietzsche was speaking to about you shouldn't, if you look into monsters, be careful that you yourself don't become a monster, is because once you become fixated on something, you can become the thing that you're fixated on. That's what I see with Trump derangement syndrome, and I think it works in both directions. There's that guy who wrote the book about the MAGA cult that was like a huge bestseller for liberals, and then like that guy on Twitter started relatively recently going off about the cult on the left, and then like it was just like a total meltdown for people who are like, wait, what are you doing? Like in all the cognitive dissonance there, and he's like, you guys have your own version of the thing. Like you think that you're not susceptible to these things. Like people treat it that, if they're very anti-religion, that they don't have any tendency towards religious like thinking, but they'll just make something else into that anyway, and then this will become the object of worship just inevitably, because this is our tendency. Like our tendency is towards this because it's the easiest
more
route,
famous
right?
than Jesus. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Were we talking about that yesterday about the
I kind of just lamented that the Beatles were on a lot of speed. I don't remember anything else.
Oh, right. No. I was going off about the Passover plot, and that was John's explanation for why he made that statement that you just referenced.
Right.
About,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Totally.
I don't know. But that idea, though, the Passover plot's actually important to it as well, because the idea that the Passover is even at an older level dealing with the wife of God, like Elion and Asherah, and that's kind of a secret that's being kept. That's occulted, in
Right. Well, wasn't John kind of just saying that rock and roll itself, like by its nature, could end up being a cult bigger than Christianity, and that Christianity could die out and this cult could continue?
I mean, it's weird. Like people would share Bible stories with their kids, and now I think you're like sharing movies. So you have to imagine: did George Lucas think that kids would be better off watching Jar Jar Binks and Anakin Skywalker than learning about like Second Kings? Is this? I'm not. It probably
Isn't that kind of learning about Second Kings a little bit though?
This is my version. Trust me, I fixed it. Like I got a better version. Maybe. That's
Well, what Yoda says about specifically about the jealousy factor, where he's like, "This leads to this leads to this leads to this," and Yoda freaking calls it, and that whole series can actually be consolidated into Yoda's warning to Anakin when he's like that you, because he was so jealous of the different people on the council, and then the way that translated into his relationship with Natalie Portman, Padme. That. Yeah, and so he foresaw it. He was like, because his attachment to her, with her, like he got all suspicious of her and he was all freaking out. And then it was like that was directly connected to his jealousy with the panel of Jedis, right? Like the council. So like he wanted to do better there, and it ended up translating into his relationship, or vice versa. Like they were all connected, and Yoda just saw it all. That was like, of the whole like the prequels, for me, like what Yoda communicated and the way that played out, I felt was like so significant. I was like, I haven't even seen another movie that I can remember where somebody like expressed that so directly, and then you saw it play out like that. Like, is there another example of that? The transference, the way that he had this issue here, and now it's going to translate over in this other area, and the whole thing becomes a descent to the dark side, right? Which, by the way, the thing with the dark side,
he's like telling the kid like this is going to happen to you,
Yeah. So Bill and I were talking earlier today about the Schwartz in Spaceballs, because Schwartz is Yiddish for black, and so you have the dark side of the Force, but in the case of Spaceballs, the whole thing is dark. Like he's like, there's the good side of the Schwartz and the bad side, or you got the upside, I got the downside. There's two sides to every Schwartz, but Schwartz itself is black. So that's kind of weird.
Well, before we move, oh no, I missed it.
Hello? What? What? Hey, can they hear us? Can they hear? What? Get.
I love it. I love what's going on. I don't want to stop him.
Is it? Are we live? What? You guys never tell me anything. Listen, it's all late. Everything is late. It's all late. Here I'm showing up late. What a wonderful discussion so far. But damn it, if I wasn't high enough when you started talking about white dudes for Kamala. Oh, I said it wrong. Sorry, Kamala. Don't want to get canceled just by showing up here on the first, 30 seconds. Good grief.
It should have been old white dudes. Like, as far as I could tell, they were all like 65 at least. They're like white boomers. It's boomers for Kamala,
White privilege for Kamala. Hey,
yeah, that was definitely their
It was
whole...
literally Joe Camel. Like it's Joe Biden with Kamala. But what's funny about that too is that people take that as an offensive thing to associate her with the camel. But for me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, that in tarot is the high priestess.
Yeah.
Like Gimel means camel. It's where we get the word camel from, is from the Hebrew letter Gimel spelled out, which is a camel. And so the
camel toe for a face is an inversion. So there's something there.
I'm just saying, like, it's actually symbolic of the high priestess. So go ahead.
Just think of how much more of a high priestess she would be if she smoked American spirits. Hey, zing. I mean, pure tobacco and all.
Indian, what did you die for? Indian says nothing at all.
I mean, come on.
Wait, but-
Spirits or nothing else.
Thomas was trying so desperately to finish a concluded thought.
Well, yeah, before we move too far from John Lennon, I recently saw an interview with Al Cap and John Lennon. Have any of you guys seen this?
Maybe, probably. Tell me.
So, like, Al Cap was a famous cartoonist, but he was also somewhat of like a staunch Republican-esque, or I guess like very conservative at the time. And it's just like a 10-minute clip of him absolutely berating John and Yoko and just like, why didn't you shower? Why didn't you cut your hair? Why does it smell so bad in this room? But it's just like just nonstop absolute troll roasting them. I don't know. I thought it was fascinating.
Well, probably 'cause they smell like trash.
Is this when they're like naked in the bed or something?
Yes,
or?
yes, it is.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I've seen this. This is in the documentary. Yeah.
When I was a kid, man, I was so confused because like some of my earliest thoughts were like the Beatles, you know, because I saw Woodstock documentary, 2nd grade, and I thought the Woodstock documentary was really interesting. And the Beatles, I had like the anthology Red and Blue, so the blue was like them young on this balcony, and then the red was them on the same balcony like 6 years later after they've done a lot of acid with beards and long hair. And as a second and third grader, I'm like, what? You know, like what happened in their lives? Okay, apparently they did a lot of drugs. They went to India. Like, you know, that's your 3rd grade understanding of drugs, is that the Beatles did the drugs, and that's how Yellow Submarine
And their
happened.
music is so much better with the drugs. What happened?
Maybe, but like I actually really like the formulaic. I like the formulaic music. So the fact that like you'd be reassured that they were on a lot of drugs the whole time. They just weren't on psychedelics. There's something about "I Want to Hold Your Hand" that's, you know, it's.
Hey,
I like formula.
The I Want to Hold Your Hand days are over. You know,
Right. You just need to grab them by the. Never mind.
Yeah,
it's funny because Jim Morrison said the exact same thing. James and John. Jim Morrison said it about Love Street. He goes, "The Love Street days are over." Yeah. I don't know what you're on about. You know, like people would do that with the Beatles too. You know, they're like, "Come on, just I want to hold your hand. What happened to you? We used to be tight."
And people want to hate on the Beatles. They want to hate on Yoko Ono, and I feel like that's missing the point because they were all, you know, taking drugs and becoming their own people. They weren't the kids they were when they started. Some of them might have been replaced by the Tavistock agency. You know what I mean?
I love Yoko, and we may have Sean on here someday. That could happen. Yeah. And I would love that. And Yoko, I've defended Yoko for years. Exactly. And I used to be on the same bandwagon as other people. And I realized, I'm like, dude, she's got a crazy catalog, man.
Yeah.
Like she's produced a lot of music. So
I never was on
some of that music.
I was never on the. Yeah, sure. I actually love her. I've got some vinyls, but I never was against her because even when I first heard the Yoko factory idea, I was like, well, you haven't really seen the videos of how much John Lennon loved being with her and how much it like was what he was trying to do and how interesting. Like, she's brilliant. Like what they were doing, they weren't crazy. They were doing venture capitalist work in New York City as well and like changing the world. There's a reason why he might have been taken out. You know, like. But
right. It's the if you want it part of War is Over, and that's a hard thing for people because his whole thing was like people don't even know what they could have. Like we're so conditioned, we are so programmed to think that what we got is all we could ever have. That's my issue with like the duopoly 2-party system thing too. I was like, we have to relate to the past, like that's what it has to be, and definitely into the future. It makes no sense.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great? I don't know. What are you thinking about, Thomas?
Okay. I was just wondering what the hell Sam's talking to back there. What kind of argument are you having with your producer, Sam?
I'm still just fussing at why he's so damn late. What's going on over there? Don't blame it on me just because I was asleep. You know?
What else has been going on in your life? What have you guys been seeing that's been freaking you out?
Freaking me out. I saw something the other day. Hold on.
Meta's gonna have to pay $1.4 billion to Texas for scanning users' faces without permission. It's a drop in the bucket. A little bit less.
Is it? I don't even know, dude.
You don't think so? You think that?
I don't know. I mean, the day that I got removed from Facebook was the day and year that we had the biggest loss for any particular single company in Wall Street history, and that was Meta. And I don't know, I read Black Swan Theory with an open mind. Like, I don't agree with everything that guy had to think about 9/11, but I could is it a Black Swan event if they knew it was going to happen? Like, otherwise, that's not really a Black Swan event, right? That's something else, according to the guy who coined the term. But anyway, no, I mean, I don't know.
It does feel like Facebook's a total hassle for them that they want to get rid of. It's like a legacy product that they wish they didn't have to support. You know, it just causes them trouble. They like want to make games for kids. They don't want to have to deal with it.
I'm amazed at like the level, just generally speaking, not about everybody, but when I go on Facebook now, I have total culture shock. And I
Yeah.
wish I had discovered Twitter like earlier than I did, you know, because I didn't really get into Twitter until I
know
got
it feels like we
booted
came from
completely
North
Facebook.
Korea. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Well, it's just you. The way you've explained it is that like Twitter's like a city, and Facebook is like the small town. And I go on to Facebook and I share something about whatever I want to talk about, RFK, you know, sue me, whatever. I share what I think, and the types of response I get from like the local people and their react, it's like, dude, I don't even get this kind of stuff on Twitter. Like, what is happening? Like with the level of access to information from people who are really invested in Facebook, and that's their primary social media, especially if they have no other means, is so censored. Is that what it is? I mean,
You know what?
like,
It
dude, I live in
reminds
an
me
algorithm
of
What's
back
that?
in the day when like the AOL CDs would come in the mail, or you could just get like a free month of AOL, and there were so many people that thought AOL was the internet. They would never like minimize AOL and open up a browser and go out, and every single thing that they ever got was through AOL's like curated little channels. And this isn't just like hyperbole. Literally, a majority of people using AOL had no idea what the internet was. They thought internet was AOL in these curated little areas. So, and I think Facebook is just a new version of that. They'll literally be like, let me go and search that, and they won't pull up Google or like
yes,
DuckDuckGo.
you're absolutely right. They'll sit there and say, well, how do I search for anything if I don't have Facebook? I'm like, whoa, gosh, good grief.
Well, I need to dig deeper into Cambridge Analytica, because like obviously it's a thing and we kind of know what we know about it, but it's interesting how it went from ideas at the top were new ideas and the new post, all of a sudden you're in your little group. And I remember hearing a radio show on the BBC right before this happened, where they were talking about most people, they just study, and they're saying internet culture wasn't working because they thought bringing people to work on the internet was going to have, you know, the same effect as being in like a cubicle scenario, but it's completely different. And people having open workspaces, the amount of people you can interact with, they thought they're going to interact with tens of thousands of people. People can really only interact with this at like 140 people effectively, or something like that. They got it to a particular number of like around 100 people. And when they said that, they're like, look at how effective you can be if you have an effective network of 100 people, like a small Welsh village. And that was the model. Immediately after that, that's what I started noticing was people would be locked into about 100 people that were their support network to each other. And that kept that information from getting to other people as much as possible.
Right. There's also a test of character that's happening, because we have this repeated thing. Like there's that joke, like what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a fact? And they'll be like, about 3 months, you know? It's like, because you just give it enough time. But it's Schopenhauer's 3 stages of truth, and we're seeing it happen over and over again. So if people have asserted something with total confidence that they really believe that this is the case about some heated cultural topic, doesn't matter what it is. I would say COVID's a good example, but there's a lot of examples of it where some time goes by and now it should be known that all those people were wrong. Like, you know, like Dave Smith likes to gloat, and I actually kind of like it, you know, where he's just like, I was right, you were wrong. And there's this whole thing, but like it's a test, because the better, like your humility, like when you are shown that you've been wrong about something that you've invested in, the degree to which you have humility around it and can acknowledge how you are wrong, and like and explain how you are wrong and be okay with that, that determines when the next psyop or whatever you want to call it comes along, how quickly you're going to question that. Because if you have still not admitted that you fell for the last thing, you'll probably fall for the next. So it doesn't matter what the new thing is. If you have not gotten to a place where you can be like, wow, I was wrong about that, and acknowledge that to people around you, then you'll just continue on your way and just doing that repeatedly. It's amazing, the power of denial. But yeah.
Nicholas asks, does anybody use Yandex? Of course. I use Brave.
I don't know what Yandex is.
Yandex is the Russian one. The way I would say is like, use whatever search engine's government isn't in your country. Like if you're not in Russia, then Russia has very little use for that much data about you, and they're unlikely to share it with the Western intelligence. So even though it's compromised in Russia, probably great to use everywhere outside of Russia for the most part. And Google, similarly, I would say, I don't think Google's giving your information to the Russian government either. and
Hey,
Gimel.
so Andreas, I did have a question for you.
What's up, bro?
Coming across my feed over here, it says there's a raging California wildfire that has grown bigger than the area of Los Angeles.
That's
I
a
was
big
wondering
fire.
if you're familiar with that said.
There's
man.
been a lot of wildfires lately, and on my computer it'll show me the distance away. And I saw one the other day that was like 30 miles or something. I was like, ooh, yikes. But yeah, there's some big fires around us.
Apparently, it's in Sacramento area, or it's north. It's 90 miles north of Sacramento in Central Valley. So it's pretty far from us, up in the hot east, the north, in the dry lands. But yeah, it sounds pretty brutal.
Prayers for those people.
The problem with these fires, right, is like they set it up so that insurance only covers a few of them, and then they're going to be able to rebuild in that area or something like that. Almost always, like the elite will have the only insurance. And also, when a fire like this hits, it's usually in a place that hasn't had a fire in a long time. So if we have small fires, things are good. We need brush clearing. And then if you don't, you have like a super fire here. So it looks like it's only 14% containment. Brutal. 4,000 people evacuated, 192 structures destroyed. No injuries or deaths yet, though.
And if you don't have fire insurance, you're screwed.
Yeah.
There was a woman that I drove in my cab who had her house burned down in one of those fires a few years back, and I drove her to the homeless shelter, and she was like shaking. She was like hyperventilating. I saw her over the next like year and a half, 2 years, and she was like, I saw her the night she became homeless, and then I saw her look like any homeless person. You wouldn't know that she actually had a house. She had money. She never occurred to her that this could ever happen to her. She's like middle-aged, just like, well, screw it. And then you're like, that's how it happens now. Because it used to be when I was a kid that generally speaking, people kind of chose it. Like they'd make certain either bad choices or even these are the choices they made in their life. I knew a guy who had traveled the world. He'd been to Vietnam. It's this guy, Bubba. You may have known him in Aptos. But super cool homeless guy, hung out on the tracks, whatever. But he wanted that. He wanted to sleep outside. He was one of the happiest people I've met in my life, But like his reality of what homelessness meant back then in Santa Cruz and I'm sure elsewhere, is not what it is today. Like people can be 1-2 checks away from, if they can't make their ends meet, everything just goes to hell, So yeah, that's why I have more compassion for homeless people,
Do you remember that movie Down and Out in Beverly Hills?
Of course. And who was the main guy in that? I want to say it was Jeff Bridges, but I know it was not. It was another. It was Nick Nolte. Was it Nick Nolte?
The guy who just recently was upset at the woke. What was the? No, that's the. Hold on.
No.
Yeah. Eminem.
Yeah. Right. This movie, man. What was it?
Yeah.
Who's in this?
I thought it was Nick Nolte.
It might be Nick Nolte. Is it? Is it Nick Nolte?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's totally Nick Nolte right there.
Wow.
You bet.
That's crazy. I gotta rewatch this movie. It's been a while. But I like the scene where he's like, "How you ever been in a Rolls Royce before?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course. I used to have 2, like a month ago before I lost everything." That kind of vibe. That's what it's like.
Yeah. This movie went alongside another movie too, Ruthless People, which both had Bette Midler, and they were kind of similar vibes.
I was thinking Life Stinks too, which is the Mel Brooks
version.
Well, the second story here that I have is a very interesting one. It's coming from Oklahoma, saying that a fetus does not need its own medical marijuana license.
That's the closest thing to fetal rights.
Child neglect for a pregnant woman prescribed medical marijuana to use it. But some judges say,
So if you're started over, read the whole thing again. I need to understand the context.
A fetus does not need its own medical marijuana license, says the Oklahoma court. The ruling means it's not child neglect for a parent. For a pregnant woman prescribed medical marijuana to use it. But some judges say that it should be. So, that you have to go in there, you have to grab the little baby arm, and you have to let them sign it. And this goes all back to what I was saying earlier in the chat. When you guys started talking about, I'm just thinking about how archaic it is that we're still growing babies in wombs. It's 2024. Oh, how gross! Listen,
I think the baby should be allowed. I think the baby should be allowed to smoke even if he's not born. That's where I'm going with this. I don't think the mom should need the.
You guys remember, like, you saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit in the theater? Anybody?
I saw
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so Roger Rabbit in the theater. I swear to God, I remember that baby smoking a big old cigar,
Yeah.
Yeah, of
and
course.
but there was more. He cursed more. Like he was.
He
It was.
cursed more, and he
It
also
was.
was looking under like women's dresses and calling them
It was.
toots.
That's
and,
still
It was.
that's in my
That-
video.
That part's still in it. Like he was still edgy, but I could swear to God, and this might be a Mandela effect, but I don't think so. I think they changed it when it came out on video to make it more child friendly. I think it was
Maybe
like
you
it,
had
like it
some
rubbed
weird
people the wrong
blockbuster-
way, like
you
where
might
they
have
went
some
with that baby.
blockbuster version of it, but
Well,
I'm
I
pretty
actually
sure.
I've got a theory on this too, because there was also a deleted scene where Jessica Rabbit gets flipped out of the car and they show her legs open for like one literal frame,
I
and then
did
they
it
remove
when I
it.
was
but
when I was a kid. As soon as it came out
Yeah.
on video, I remember like pausing it and trying to get the pause to go just right,
But
frame by
I
frame.
feel like the conspiracy here is that they intentionally have like a dirty version just so they can remove it, just so that they can release like the uncut version later on after the original like the non-theatrical, commercial release has been out. So now that you've got a reason to go and buy like the DLC version of Roger Rabbit.
No, I think
Yeah, I
it's
don't
that they were making Who Framed Roger Rabbit like for the purpose of watching it themselves later privately. They don't want everyone else to have the full version of the movie.
Maybe. I don't know.
Listen, I'm still being creeped out about the babies in wombs in 2024 when 124 years ago we had baby incubators. What the hell? It's like we reverted backwards. What was going on here about all that?
I don't know. What do you think about the guy who's, we were talking earlier, who has over 1,000 babies, maybe 10,000 babies around the world, right? Like in Kenya and Argentina and Holland. He's the super
I think
donor.
I saw the interview a while back. Some of them he just sends the sample off to.
Yeah. Others
Then
will
some
drive
people
delivery.
are like, hey, I want it natural. You know what I mean? And so
Well,
and
yeah.
it's like, oh, hey, then he, catches a flight over there and it's like, hey, home run.
I feel like actually he's better off. Like the one where you fly to Kenya and you stay in a hospital and then they pay for your meals for 2 weeks. That sounds like pretty good, actually.
Right. Well,
I'm
because
just-
I'm not going to finish that thought.
I'm
Never
imagining
mind.
like some elite family that's just hiring a hitman to go out and take out like 1,000 of this dude's kids. Like we
That's what's
cannot
happening, yeah.
allow this like normie
That's
to
what I
compete with us.
expect. I expect they're gonna do that. Yeah.
There's
I
like they're
worry
like,
for
it's like who is your daddy and what does he do?
Like
Oh, he's
trans
just a
and
guy
sterilize them all.
that is seated half the population in 2050. All right, you're dead.
I mean, I wonder also about like how will that affect in the future, because these are only possible because of technology. The technology that's made it possible for this guy to use all these seed banks. You can go online with the internet, and so how many more people are like this, and what is the potential that there's going to be really only a few new seeders to the I mean, if people weren't allowed to breed, and this is also people that were not capable of breeding because they're a lot of time lesbians, or they don't have another partner. This is great. This is it. Like, or I think one of the husbands had a vasectomy or something like that. So these are people that would have otherwise been cut out of the gene pool, and he's resurrected their family lines, which were clearly intentionally ended. Right? Like society's worked really hard to stop people from breeding this generation. So I feel like
not
that's
just revive their familial lines, but also they're going to get to be part of a huge dynasty.
Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
the Lion of Mombasa, right?
Well, I guess though, here's another interesting rabbit hole. A while back I read a story that says about half the population in the world has no internal dialogue. This goes back to the idea of having a soul, maybe not having a soul. So the question is does his lineage have souls? Are they not souls? Are they just meat sack breeding? I don't know. These things are very interesting, very esoteric, very occult.
Well, that's one of the cool things about the Jonathan Jacob Meyer guy. I mean, it was cool, but he made a YouTube channel, right? And now he's got more views because of his Netflix special, but he's only getting like 100 views, 600 views for most of his videos, and he wasn't making his videos for people. He was making it for his kids, pretty clearly. Like, he's going all around the world to all the seed banks, in Denmark and Africa and everything like that. Then he'll visit the country, and he like leaves a little message. And this is his like distant parenting, which is leaving like a record for all the thousands of kids that will be, you know.
So they'll find him, they'll find the GPS, the data, and then they'll trace it back to the end, the time when
Imagine
the
this cult
happened, and
imagine
then they'll
this
be able to
sci-fi
track
movie.
him down one by one, take them out like a James Bond movie. And
Dude, it's like a dystopian
around.
film where they're like, yeah, it's like in the future, there's an entire like terrorist like nation that's all descended from one mad YouTuber, and they all
Instead
use.
of Genghis Kong, it's just literally this YouTube influencer.
And his vlog is his manifesto. I mean,
well,
is he
then
not
you
our
can
guy?
have the movie of the children who are running from, you know, the men in black that are chasing them down, you know, and then it's like, you know, they're the last 2 or 3 remaining of the bloodline, and they're being chased down because dad was silly enough to remind them on a video that they then were able to get all the data and track them down one by one. There's only 3 left.
Melissa
It
says,
sounds like a Philip K. Dick book, huh?
yeah, right.
Right?
Melissa's saying that this guy's an eco-terrorist. Is that mean you're into him, or I can't? Isn't
Whoa.
that like a good thing?
Wait a
He's
minute.
I thought-
terrorist, right?
I grew up in
Yeah,
imagine
California.
this dude's
I thought
carbon
eco-terrorist is
footprint now.
like
He's basically an eco-terrorist based on his carbon footprint.
right.
How
it goes
come
like
he's a terrorist?
it goes
Wait,
like
I mean-
Karate Kid, skater, surfer, gay guy, and then in terms of attractive, eco-terrorist at the top. Right? Isn't that the scale?
Hierarchy.
For yeah.
Interesting.
Well, listen, I think there's one thing we can all agree on about this guy.
Mhm.
He's come a long way.
Oh snap! Sam,
Oh,
coming
dear.
with it.
Sam, do you still have that? Is the texting still happening?
No, it's over now. We'll
God.
find out around the 21st night of September, something
Oh,
like
nice.
that.
Ooh.
In September, we're going to be doing a show with Christopher Knowles. I think he's finally.
Oh.
That's good. That's nice.
Good. That sounds fun. Yeah, I was reading this book, the Synchromystic Handbook. I have some little things, notes I'd like to ask him about some specifics.
Is he sick of talking about our gods wear spandex yet?
Yeah.
Ah,
He's moved on from that.
Can we all wear spandex anyway, though? Like he can wear it, we can wear it. We can all wear spandex. We don't have to talk about it.
hold on, wait a minute. This is a good question. Round table, real quick. If you had to wear spandex as a superhero, what color would it be?
Dude, I have so much spandex. I can't pick. Are you kidding me?
You have
I
to
have
pick.
like
Okay, so 2
I
colors.
have
What
like
is your 2-color outfit? Yeah, I
one of
know
my-
you have one.
one of my favorite. Okay, so like one of my favorite pairs of leggings are like blue and red and white, like red, white, and blue with like stars and stripes. But I actually like my Maryland flag. I have a bunch of state flag themed leggings. I really like my Maryland flag one because it has literal like crabs crawling on your crotch. And then there's like red, black, and yeah, the Maryland leggings are probably the
Yeah.
greatest.
I got to go with the chroma key green, just so you could sneak up on people on stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
there you go. What
Checkered,
about
black
you?
and white checkered leggings are also really good. Sorry, David. What are your favorite leggings?
Yeah.
Do you rock climb?
No, I do not rock climb, and I don't even. Have I worn spandex in my life? Maybe when I used to do tap dancing. I feel like at one point I had to wear spandex when I was tap dancing as a youth. But yeah,
We're
I
gonna
don't know.
have a great talk show someday with a couch and with a place for David to tap dance.
Sunday.
like-
That's soon.
Play it again, Dave, and then you'll just come out and just be like, I wish I.
I haven't tap danced in years, but I used to. I used to do a lot of things. I used to play
Did you
piano.
have to do Who's That Doggy in a Window?
No.
I think my
No.
producer used to. Didn't you just do some tapping? Yeah. And river dance. Ah, how about,
Go figure.
who would have thought?
Yeah.
I
I'll
knew a
be
girl. I knew a girl who did that. She did those Irish dancing and the river dancing and things like that. She thought river dance was cheating because you don't use your hands enough, and so the Irish dancing they have to like throw their hands up and stuff. But man, I just saw that documentary on how they abused all of those gymnast girls, and I feel like everybody ever that I've ever known, is it just everyone's always abused because with and then they glue their socks to their legs, and it's just so yeah. Keep your kids out of that stuff.
Right.
And read NASA comic, The Never a Straight Answer by Paranoid
For
American.
dear God, please
Dear
get
God,
this.
please, dude.
Watch the interview that me and Paranoid American had together as well, asking me very interesting questions. Some of them I could not answer, but we'll have a follow-up We'll go a little deeper down the rabbit hole in the future, but you should watch that as well.
Sounds
Yeah,
pretty
we
based.
unveiled that not only are there puppet secret societies and hierarchies, but there are puppeteers.
Yeah, tears.
I've actually seen
Ah.
Sam cry some puppeteers before.
Yeah.
Paranoid American right now on YouTube. You can click to subscribe here, and then you can
Get
go to
on the train,
videos.
baby. We're blowing up. We're exploding here. We've got five or six videos a week now. And I just had my first, I think, official viral video that also got me taken off TikTok for 10 years. But it's up every place else.
That is the best video. And you also have toys. You have your own toy line.
I do. I've got my own toy line. Some of them are actually so spicy that I can't even make ads for them without worrying about getting banned off of other platforms for 10 years. But yeah.
And they're not even that kind of toy either. Imagine that.
Right. Well, if it was, it would probably be okay.
Right.
That's how it works.
Yeah, then it would trend and be pushed on TikTok.
No, that's what I found. Like if you make a video on adrenochrome or something like that.
No, you said it.
You said it.
Say the word of the day.
I'm sorry. No, it's just this
Which
thing
is
where
just
it's like
this silly, goofy idea that all these crazy people talk about.
Yeah,
that
no one
we
believes that. And in fact, we're only bringing it up to denounce it.
Because we're white dudes for Harris.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, is it the more fact-based you are, the more likely you are to be censored for it. And that's been my repeated experience, is that the more that you're based and you're able to present empirical evidence or whatever it is that you're doing, the more likely you are that they won't allow it. And if you get crazy enough, then they'll be like, oh no, this is good. This stirs the dissent that we want.
Well, once you become a caricature, then you're allowed. You're allowed to if you can frame yourself as the thing that people say don't be like that. And if you can be the thing that's like, don't let your kids near this person, then they want you to become that figurehead.
Well, Lord knows I can try.
Yeah, because listen, imagine just reading the news every day. And then all of a sudden you get the cement shoes put on you from TikTok, Instagram. Hell, you're not able to go live for, oh my gosh, it's miserable. I don't think I've been banned until 2034, though. You take the cake on that one.
We're actually kind of like a all-star power shadow band, if you think about it.
Yes.
Most of us, we're like the best of them.
Collectively, we've probably been banned for over a century, which is
we
kind of
are
remarkable.
the shadow band. I want to make a pop song about that.
Shadow band, unite!
Yeah.
Yeah.
David's been making some great videos. You guys should check out his highlights. What's up, David? Tell us about it.
You're so good at it, though. Yeah, no,
David Charles Plate is a masterwork at synchronicity, and he's put research together into the finest films and soundtracks, putting together movies with music that you've never seen before. Sometimes you've seen the movie, maybe you've heard the soundtrack, but it's a completely new lived experience once you watch one of David's synchromystical works. Syncflix by David Plate.
That's $250 right there. 30 seconds. Right?
That was great. Yeah, I got a 30-second spot. Look at that.
$250 coming at you via PayPal.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel real. Tell me more.
There's some videos on here that aren't on the website, so you can go and show them. You can click on the website too. But yeah, no, I on the website, I think I have over 200 films for free streaming and download. That is the culmination of about, I would say, approaching 28 years of work at this point. So yeah, it's
and you mentioned earlier about Deadpool Eminem.
No, I was just experimenting with that last night. You had mentioned Wolverine and Deadpool for sync film, so that was actually something that's been on my mind. So yeah, I was like, because I had another sync with Eminem's Kamikaze and Deadpool 1 and 2 at the same time. That's on the website and on Twitter. But I was just experimenting last night with like a bootleg copy and trying to see what I could do. But,
well, it's not something I want to like, encourage or like recommend or anything like that. But I did just see that is it Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool? He posted recently that if he were to have an actor replace him in Deadpool, he would want it to be Taylor Swift, because he feels like Taylor Swift is like the most like Deadpool of anyone he knows. So I kind of feel like that's...
Is that a celebrity Deadpool joke though? Is that like, I would think Mel Brooks, but okay.
I'm sorry if I Freuded that or something. But yeah, basically you should probably look and see if there's some Ice Spice Taylor Swift syncs going on right there, because there's definitely a vibe to it. You know what I mean?
I did see an article today that was saying that Taylor Swift possibly has 160 IQ, which I believe is roughly the same as Albert Einstein.
Wow.
Cool.
Interesting.
Right.
Cool.
I'm not going to brag right now. Have a great night, everybody. It was a lot of fun. And you know what? El Seguir sus sueños, which means follow your dreams.
Mineral water.